The route guidance will start now.
No.
At least one toll road is included in the current route.
Alright, my head's up.
Please proceed to the highlighted route, then the route guidance will start. At least one toll road is included in the current route.
on, we had enough to eat. We had enough to eat. Come on. Get your blankie. Just a minute then. Just a minute. Just a minute. There you are. There you are. Frankie. Where's your other shoe? Only got one shoe. Where's the other one? Where's your other shoe? Couldn't find a shoe and then I found it.
Oh, okay. Okay. Where's Rod? Where did Rod go?
I put them there.
Where did Rod go? It's all in his mind. Hi, sweetie.
What are you doing? Close now?
Leave it open because she'll get too hot in the back. Yeah, thank you. Hey, sweetie.
Want an ice cream or anything?
No, not really. But if you want one, you can. You're right there. Have a swirl cone or whatever. The McDonald's right there. No, Rod, Mom wants an ice cream.
All right.
Never mind,
Go.
never mind. It's back.
Oh, okay, never mind. Okay.
There's a huge lineup in there, Mom. You'll be there for half an hour.
Hey?
There's a huge lineup in there. You'd be in there half an hour
I
waiting
know,
for an
that's
ice
why
cream.
I said never mind.
Yeah.
Okay, honey.
Are we all aboard?
Okay,
We
honey.
are.
We're ready,
Orange
honey.
is in.
Off we go. Do we need this now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Because we're still in the park, and then we'll go to Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, sweet potato. Yeah.
She was asking for more. And I told her, I'm like, no, Abby, no.
Hello. Say hello.
Let's see which is still hot. Yes, it is.
Good. Works a little bit better than that green one, eh?
What's he doing?
I have no
It
idea.
didn't indicate.
He absolutely did not.
Okay, let's put it like that. No. Okay, she has.
Where'd the sweets go? I put them there.
Down there. That's not a good place for anything other than a phone.
Here, what are these? These are ones in your cup? Oh yeah, just put them in there. I'm not gonna want them. I'm
Do you want a sweet tray?
No.
No.
Okay.
Thank you. That's the magnet. Oh, that's where you put the magnet in. Cool. Is the other magnet in the glove compartment, Rod?
It's in the backpack. Yeah, it's in here.
Yeah.
How do I get out of here?
Fuck. Here. Shit, I wanted to check to see if the milk would still be good. You're hot. You're getting hot, sweet potato.
Yeah, dude, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Don't drive and look at me like I'm acting an idiot. You just stopped at an intersection.
Stop here.
Yes, I can see the stop sign.
I'm covered by that big truck.
Yeah.
Hey, zipper.
Can you, if you can, it's not a huge deal, but if you can you tuck my red bag down?
What? Oh, so whoever puts it down.
I didn't think, yeah, I don't know, I didn't think.
Hey, and I always ask if it, yeah. Okay?
Yeah, that's perfect.
Okay. Back on links, yeah. Links, and links on Bear Drive, probably.
No, I'm on my way out of here now.
Or
I was supposed to turn on Wolf and I got mixed up and I didn't realize it was Wolf.
I understand. Då så, så va? Så. Oh, why did I do that to you? Oh, I had a really big scab on my nose and I just pulled it right off.
Put some
And it really hurt and then it started.
put some of that cream up it. You know that Pentaxin you gave me for my boobs.
Yeah.
Put some of that on your nose. That's fine.
I know, I should just left it. Stubborn G. Piece of chunks thing. Hello? Just thinking, maybe I should give her Tylenol. Oh, her shirt is all weak. Oh, is that better? Yeah, is that better? There
We made it down to the Gimli Canada Day event. Sheet.
Mwah. That one, like beep beep. Beep beep. Oh, beep beep.
Well, here it is, the official beginning of our tour to Lake Louise in Yoho Park today. We are going to have a great time. Here's what I have planned for us today. First, we're going to drive to Lake Louise. We have a choice of 2 routes to get there. If you feel like you want to get to Lake Louise quickly, or if we are late getting started today, then we'll just follow the Trans-Canada Highway, and we should exit in about 40 minutes or so. But if you have time and you want to explore, then I strongly recommend that we take the Bow Valley Parkway for the first half of the drive.
Just behind the seat.
This is the old highway, a road that now has a reduced speed limit of 50 kilometers per hour. It's a bit slower, but the payoff is that you have a better chance of seeing wildlife going this way. And also, we can stop and see the beautiful Johnston Canyon along that route. After we turn off for Lake Louise, we'll visit both Lake Louise and Moraine Lake. After Lake Louise, I'll take us west to Yoho National Park. We can stop at the spiral tunnels and watch the bizarre sight of seeing a train traveling over the top of itself through a mountain. If you can picture that. Then on to Emerald Lake and the Natural Bridge. There's a walk at the end of Emerald Lake, and it's easy and a great way to absorb the stunning scenery. Finally, we'll make our way to the biggest waterfall in the Rockies, Kakakaw Falls. We'll be impressed by the amount of water falling over the huge cliff from the hidden glacier above. Then we'll finish our day by driving back to Banff. If we plan on doing everything, which I really recommend we should, then this is going to be a great day of touring. Right about now, we're passing by the Vermilion Lakes on the left. These lakes are unusual compared to most lakes here in the Rockies. They're shallow and fed by warm spring water, whereas most of the lakes are fed by water that's run off a glacier somewhere. Don't be fooled. Vermilion Lakes, still a little on the cold side for swimming.
I didn't even see them. Oh no, there they are. Yeah.
that what those are?
Yeah.
Nice. I think my left ear popped finally.
Good. Feel better?
Oh.
Nice.
Here's our first choice. We can take the next exit to drive the scenic Bow Valley Parkway. Remember, this is the slower route, but we'll have a better chance of seeing animals. Not that there's any guarantees of that, though. Or if we want to get to Lake Louise as quickly as we can, just stay on the highway.
Oh, that's too bad. Oh,
Here?
I was gonna go down there, but it's closed.
It's closed?
Yeah, oh well, whatever.
It's too bad. Why was it closed?
I don't know, it didn't say.
The bridge we're on crosses over a road, a railway, and the Bow River. All bridges in the national park, like this one, also serve as a passage that animals can use to safely get across the highway by passing underneath it. Through years of research and observation, we've learned some interesting things about wildlife crossings. One of those is that many predators do not like dark spaces, such as culverts or underpasses. So shortly, we'll see how scientists have created safe crossings for all animals, particularly grizzly bears, as an alternative to dark underpasses, which some of them won't use. We'll soon see the exit that goes to Healy Creek and the Sunshine Village Ski Resort. We're going to continue on the highway. Sunshine is one of 3 ski areas in Banff National Park and offers one of the longest ski seasons in all of North America, with skiing from mid-November through until late May, a full 6 months. The Canadian Rockies enjoy a dry, light powder type snow. What this means is that the actual water content of the snow is only about 7%,
That is wet.
compared to 10% in most snow areas.
Oh, so it's
This
extra
makes the
fun.
snow lighter and fluffier, and lots of fun for powder hounds.
Good
If you're
job.
searching for wildlife, the access
Awesome.
road to
Merci.
Sunshine
Oh,
Village
you
can
blew your
sometimes be a lucky
nose.
spot.
Yes, you did it yourself. Good job. Yeah, good job. Je peux-tu la voir, là, s'il vous plaît? C'est fini, là. She grabbed the Kleenex and she blew her nose in the Kleenex and wiped it.
Nice.
Good.
Good. C'est bon, munchkin. No, you're just smearing it all over your face. Je peux-tu la voir, là, s'il vous plaît? Thank you. Merci. Oh, all right. Tiens. Regarde là. Good job. Yeah, c'est bon.
So, the question that researchers and scientists had to address was, how do you get the chicken to cross the road?
Oh.
In this
whoa.
case, the chicken was a grizzly bear and other predators.
No way.
The answer seems simple. If they won't go under the road, well, they might as well go over the road instead. So coming up ahead of you is the first wildlife overpass,
my
completed back in the summer of 2000.
No way.
At $1 million to construct. At the time, it was considered a very expensive experiment. The good news was, yes, it was being used by grizzly bears, wolves, and a variety of other wildlife within a few weeks of construction completion. Parks use motion-activating cameras to monitor what animals pass through.
That's kind of
The
neat.
pictures are amazing. Because of the success of the first overpass, 4 of these structures were built around the national park, and the combination of fencing and overpasses has significantly reduced highway accidents with animals. When $30 million was assigned to later highway projects, no less than $10 million of that was spent towards animal
It's like a
crossings.
ski resort up there, Rod. You can see that tower
Oh yeah, there's something, eh?
or something.
Mhm.
She's using Kleenex and smearing all over the book. Yeah, smear your boogers all over it. That's okay. Vas-y, mets-toi ton nez. C'est ça, merci. Good job. No, I moved it forward when I sat in the front.
What, you want me to move it back?
If you want, I got lots of
No,
room.
I'm alright like this.
You're alright? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I moved
You
it
got
forward.
room?
Oh, I got lots of room actually. I think a bit too much. I would think.
I'm fine.
Across the valley, we can see a large area of dead trees on the mountainside. This was purposely burned in 1993 as what's called a prescribed burn. Researchers have found that the amount and density of the forest in Banff National Park is actually quite unnatural. The descriptions provided by the early Europeans who first came into this area said that there were far more areas of wide open grassy meadows, not nearly as much old and overgrown forest as we have now. Why has this happened? Well, basically, we are responsible. For what was nearly a century at the beginning of what was Canada's first national park, the idea was that the park would be a pristinely beautiful place for tourists to visit. Forest fires and the burnt-out aftermath of fires was considered ugly and destructive. So many resources were put towards battling and extinguishing fires before they could spread. This meant the natural cycle of destroying and rejuvenating the landscape was interrupted, and as I mentioned, our forests have become overgrown. Fires thin out the forest. They open up areas that are permanently in shade to sunlight, which allows new growth. Insects are attracted to old burnt-out logs. Birds are then attracted to the insects.
I'm just wondering, like, if something comes up.
Sunlight allows berry bushes to grow, which the bears love. Animals find it just as difficult to find their way through fallen dead logs and thick forests as we do. I'm sure you're getting the picture of what I'm saying. So long as they don't threaten buildings, people, and infrastructure, Parks Canada will often take the decision to let them burn. Let nature take its normal course. And in some cases, like across the valley here, they might even set their own fires to mimic what nature would normally do on her own.
Oh,
Yeah.
There are some animals that do use the underpasses that were created. If you follow the fence line here on the right, you'll see how it feeds into one of many animal underpasses. Smart predators will sometimes wait on one side of an underpass, waiting for an unsuspecting deer or elk to pass through and then mount the surprise attack. But the problem was that those higher food chain animals, they didn't like the dark tunnels. So they would be blocked from their normal ranging patterns by the fences, or they'd find somewhere where the fence was damaged and still end up on the highway. You'll soon see another of the experimental overpasses. Straight in front of us is an impressive view of the giant amphitheater of Castle Mountain. In the bottom of that amphitheater is the aptly named Rock-Bound Lake. Bit of a tough hike to get to, but it is still quite popular. I wouldn't call it one of my favorites. You're very exposed to the summer sun, and I find other hikes are a little more rewarding. Now, I'm going to talk about hiking in the mountains up ahead. The front face and the cliffs of Castle Mountain are very impressive, and we're going to get even better views as we go further along.
The animals just think that's part of the forest.
Easy question.
Do you want to open this?
no.
Too hot?
Yeah.
Tu descends. Descends-le. Tu le fais toi-même.
This next pullout has a great lookout. This is an excellent view of this section of the Bow Valley. A nice combination of the river, marshy lands, and dramatic mountains rising out of the valley floor. If it's a nice day, this is an opportunity to take some mountain photos. There are some bathrooms here, but they're basic pit toilet style. Sorry, ladies. I know that's a bit of a challenge.
Can you see them, Jay?
Yeah, I see. What that? There's nothing in there, Munchkin. Sorry. What do you want me to get you? Jag vet inte vad du vill där. Står här något liv? Tu lis un livre? No? I'll give you another tunnel, actually.
The predominant tree in the forest around us is the lodgepole pine. Look how long and skinny the trunks of these trees are. Considering how tall they are, they have a very shallow root system. They're very easily blown over by strong winds. So a part of their survival mechanism is to grow tightly bunched together. If you start your tree life on the edge of the forest, you have to hope like crazy that more newer trees will grow up quickly around you and provide you with some protection from being blown over in a storm. Another interesting thing about the lodgepoles is that they have developed a special type of cone. About 1/3 of their cones are tightly sealed by a special resin. Fire creates the perfect conditions for the resin to release and allow the cone to be ready to germinate. While other trees are destroyed by fire and their strategy for creating new trees is also destroyed, the lodgepoles have developed a way to turn the destructive fire into an advantage to ensure they regrow the forest first. If you establish and regrow first, you're not too likely to be overgrown by a competing type of tree. We call this type of tree fire successional.
I thought we were like going to be literally driving in the mountains. Like,
We are.
Like on the,
So
on
put
the
miles on that car.
cliffs and stuff.
Oh, I think we are, but
Well, if it's good, the wheels are going round.
yeah, but not the engine, but yeah.
So the miles are going on.
Mm-hmm.
It's silly.
Look at that one.
Well, they just lift it up a bit.
Now notice where trees have been replanted on the banks of the highway on the left as we pass through the next
Oh,
bend.
yeah.
The replanting was done both to stabilize the banks and to return the forest to a more natural state after road construction. This replanting was done back in 1997. When you see how small these trees still are after that much time, it gives us a good idea about just how slow growing plants here are in the Rockies because of the very cold winters and short summer seasons we have. Mature forests of lodgepole pines tend to start to die off naturally at around 150 to 200 years of age. Here's another great view of Castle Mountain. Castle was named by James Hector back in the late 1850s as he explored his way through the Canadian Rockies. He was one of the first white people to set foot in this valley. The naming, I would say, is fairly obvious and resembles the appearance of turrets and fortifications of medieval castles. A decision was taken in 1946 by the Canadian Prime Minister to change the name Castle Mountain to be Mount Eisenhower. It was meant to be a permanent honor bestowed to Dwight D. Eisenhower for his role as Commander-in-Chief of the Allied forces in the Second World War. Over the next 25 years, public pressure grew from locals and ski and alpine clubs for the name to be restored back to Castle Mountain. The government relented and the official name was returned to Castle Mountain in 1979. To show that the locals weren't entirely against the idea of some tribute to the general, the right-hand peak is still known as Eisenhower Tower.
Look at the window, Jay. Pulling the kids behind it.
I don't think so. I think that's just their camping stuff.
Oh, so a little head with the helmets on.
Oh, really? Okay.
It's closed. One each.
Good job. No, c'est serré, ça. Regarde là. Oh, good
This is the highway exit to the route for Highway 93 South, which travels through Kootenay National Park and eventually to Radium Hot Springs before leaving the national park towards the popular weekend destination of Invermere. For our tour, we're going to follow the Trans-Canada. So far, we've made it about halfway to our exit for Lake Louise.
Holy shit.
That one on that side there. Big.
Live in a beautiful country.
Beautiful world.
Keep an eye on the right and look through the trees as we pass through them here. We might see the frame of a teepee depending on the time of year. It'll be partially hidden behind the trees. This area is known as Castle Junction, and it was an important area to the native people.
See?
There isn't a lot of archaeological evidence or oral history to suggest that native people, or First Nations people, which is the preferred reference now, lived in the heart of the Canadian Rocky Mountains permanently. We certainly do know that they often passed through the area, so they definitely had a presence here. But it seems that mostly it was an area that was used for transiting through. For the Blackfeet, this was a meeting place and a place for trading. This makes sense since this area isn't necessarily as rich in opportunities for foraging food compared to mountainous areas further west, which offer longer growing seasons and not near as bitterly cold winters. On the prairies, the native people developed excellent skills for hunting and developing food, clothing and shelter from the wild plains buffalo that were plentiful. If you have the opportunity to visit any of the First Nations exhibits, museums, or cultural sites, I highly recommend doing so. The artwork, customs, and ingenuity of these people is quite amazing. So it was common for tribes to travel east or west through these parts to trade with other bands, or even to collect different resources during different seasons. Nice view of the Bow River here, which is flowing to the east, opposite to our direction of travel. That will become an important observation later during a tour today. The whole valley here between Canmore and Lake Louise is known as the Bow Valley, named after the river, of course. If we eventually travel on the Icefields Parkway towards Jasper, we'll follow the river all the way to its source, called, you guessed it, Bow Lake. And just to complete the set, the Bow Lake is fed by the meltwater of the Bow Glacier, which sits just above it. And if you drove to Banff from Calgary, somewhere on our journey, we would have crossed over the Bow River in the city too. But why is it called the Bow? The native name for the river translated to something like the place where the willows grow, which referred to the willows and reeds that they used to make bows for hunting. Bow is not the actual word, so it's assumed it was the name given by early white explorers once they understood why the native people named it the way they did.
I guess they're building a lot of these things.
Yeah, it's still not grown. And the one we first saw was the one that they first done.
Well, I'm sure that you've noticed we've passed a number of parking areas for hiking trailhead since we've left Banff. Maybe you're wondering about what it's like to hike a trail here in the Rockies? Well, let me explain. Taking a hike in the mountains is a rewarding activity while you're in the Rockies. In fact, hiking is the sole reason for many people's visits here. There's a wide variety of trails that you can walk, ranging from easy, flat paved trails around the town site to extremely difficult multi-night backcountry treks. So here's a couple of notes to remember when you're hiking here in the Rockies. First, you should check with a Parks Canada info center about the status of any trail before you hike it. Trails may be closed for repair, restoration, or for animal activity, especially if there's been bear activity. It's really frustrating to get to a trailhead only to find the trail is closed. Next, remember to check the weather too, and be prepared for anything. Weather can change fast here in the mountains. It can snow in the Alpine at any time of year, including the summer, and storms can come through very quickly in the afternoons, making hiking a little unpleasant. So, like I said, best to be prepared. Okay, so you've checked your trail and the weather is great? Perfect. What to take with you is next. In the mountains, always dress in layers. You can get hot quickly, and it can also get cold quickly. So wear clothes that can be put on or taken off easily. Wear good, sturdy footwear. Bring a hat, some sunscreen, and remember to reapply sunscreen during the day. The temperatures might not seem really hot, but the air is thinner at higher altitude, and the sun's rays are a whole lot more powerful. You'll want to bring lots of water. Low humidity here means fast dehydration, and take some food as well. Also, yeah, you're in the mountains. We've got bugs here, so take some insect repellent too. Now, this isn't the complete list, but it should give you an idea of a couple of things to plan for. Most hikes over 3 hours will involve a climb uphill, often using switchbacks. That can be a little bit of hard work. But then the hike will usually level out, and when you reach the Alpine, you'll be faced with meadows filled with flowers, spectacular views, peaks, lakes, and sometimes even glaciers to explore. Hiking is really rewarding here, and if you have some time, try and spend at least a day out on the trails. Okay, let's talk about bears. I know that we're hoping to see some today. We're all fascinated by this creature, and of course bears, especially grizzly bears, represent the epitome of Canadian wilderness. Let me tell you a little bit about bear biology and bear psychology, okay? Like humans, every bear has a different personality. Some are curious, some are tolerant, some are grumpy, and some are just scaredy cats. They have tremendous memories and are very intelligent animals. It can be difficult to deal with all bears all in the same way because of the different personalities and different experiences that each bear remembers. For example, let me tell you about a bear named Skokie. He was a male bear that was often in the area that we're driving into. Skokie had become habituated. That means he had become used to people and had lost his fear of them. He didn't mind being approached by humans, and he didn't mind approaching people himself either. Because he often fed on the side of the road, people would stop, get out of their vehicles, and take pictures of Skokie. Sometimes they'd even throw food towards him. He eventually became aggressive about approaching people for food. Skokie's final mistake was that he decided that Lagan's Bakery in Lake Louise would be a great place for a snack. Now, it might sound funny. Imagine a full-grown grizzly bear coming through the back of the bakery to the counter area, where the staff and customers are. Needless to say, it was chaotic and a frightening scene. People scrambling to get out of the shop as quickly as they could.
She can't even handle 20 minutes in the car
anymore. A man named Hal Morrison was called to the scene. He set up a trap for old Skokie. That ended Skokie's life and freedom. Hal Morrison
There's
had
nothing
many
you can do.
dealings
There's
with
nothing
Skokie.
you are doing.
He tried in vain to make Skokie scared of humans and human places. But the power human food had over Skokie was stronger than his fear. And this last incident was just too dangerous. Skokie could not be released back into the wild. So there were only two options left for him. One, he could be destroyed. Or two, he could be moved to the zoo. Skokie lived the rest of his life a resident of the Calgary Zoo.
I don't know.
The zoo
Sorry.
do their very best to provide the best life they can for Skokie. But he's no longer a wild and free-roaming bear.
Maybe I wasn't clear when I said there's nothing you can do and there's nothing you are doing. Okay?
Wild animals, wild.
Change the atmosphere
We really need to observe the recommendations that parks make not to stop for bears or other animals. Slow down, cherish the moment if you're lucky enough to see them, but don't endanger them by stopping or getting out of your vehicle.
Yum. Yeah. Captain banana. Tu as de l'eau? Non, tu as des raisins. Oh, c'est quoi ça? Ciao. It's just got each other crying sometimes, Ronnie. Just because you really want to listen to the pod or what? Like the what he's talking about, bud?
It's frustrating is all. It's frustrating. Like 5 minutes as soon as we pull on the road, she's already inconsolable. You know, we've got probably another 30 hours in the car to go.
In total?
Probably, yeah.
Oh yeah, of course, Raw. Like it's a baby. We would expect being cooked up like that in the car for a while, though.
Well, I would expect that we should be able to get at least a couple hours.
Oh, she's quiet now, so right? She's hanging on the banana. Do you want this one? Or I
thought that was about. What are they doing standing there?
I have no idea.
Hitchhiking.
Maybe.
Oh my god. Yeah, throwing out of the car.
It almost looks like it, eh?
Yeah. Get out.
Do you like that one?
Bloody hell. Standing there right in the forest.
Well, what are they supposed to do?
Hitchhike.
You like those ones, don't you? Come in a minute. Alright. I got it. Oh, don't be worried. Yeah. It's like, why are you swimming? You like those walnuts, see? Is that good? Tu veux prendre la banane?
We're just a few moments away from our exit to Lake Louise. Now here's how I suggest we do this. After we exit, we'll pass by the Sampson Mall. That's an opportunity for us to stop if we need a quick snack, a coffee for the road, or even a restroom break. Then we'll drive up to Lake Louise. Let's spend some time exploring the lake and make sure you get lots of photos. After Lake Louise, I'll take us to Moraine Lake. That'll take us about 20 minutes to get there from Lake Louise. And after we visit Moraine Lake, I'll bring us back to the highway and we'll continue on to Yoho National Park.
This one's a time. Wait. Sausage time. That is a chestnut. No. C'est la banane? Banane. She wants a C-H-O-C-O-L-A-T. She had one, but she was like, I want more.
this trail mix. That's what it is.
Here it is, our exit for Lake Louise. This is the only exit, so let's not miss it. Move over to the right lane if we aren't already there. After we exit, we'll reach an intersection at the end of the ramp. Turn left at that junction. You'll see it's easy, just follow the signs. Well done. We're now moving into the next phase of our tour today. But before I explain what's next, I just wanted to share something interesting about the stream we're passing over, called Pipestone Creek. It was named for the blue-colored soft rock found in the creek that the Stoney Indians carved to make smoking pipes. You'll have a hard time finding any of that magical stone today.
Is that where I'm supposed to turn? Surely not.
No, you just told me.
Icefields Parkway, okay.
So you can't miss this shortcut. You can't miss it.
Watch for wildlife.
Coming up is a very important junction. This is the entry for the Icefields Parkway. For our tour today, we're going to stay on Highway 1 and keep traveling west. If our itinerary is to turn into the Icefields Parkway now, then you should shut down this app and launch my Icefields Parkway Tour app. At some time during our stay here in the Canadian Rockies National Parks, you really need to take that drive. It's been voted the most beautiful mountain drive in the world. And of course, as you've heard, I have a tour for you to follow on that route too, so you won't miss a thing. But for today, let's keep following Highway number 1 west to Yoho National Park, which will take us into British Columbia.
Where are we going?
We're going to the Icefields Parkway in Jasper.
Nice. You're lucky Mama's giving you surveys. I know, that's your third one now already.
Great. I love driving the Icefields Parkway. But first, we must pull into the Park Pass checkpoint. If you don't have a pass, you can get one there. I'll be back on the other side of the booth.
Creepy. Want to try the chest ones? The cherries? Ooh. That's a cherry. Cherry.
Need to show them this one.
Yeah. No, just leave it, just leave it. Okay, we just got to pass on Banff. Okay, thank you.
Oh, you like those cherries, don't you? Is that good? There's another cherry. Cerise. Yeah. That's
Excellent. So now, with all the formalities done, let's enjoy the most beautiful mountain drive in the world. I sure hope we've got nice weather. The key to really enjoying the Icefields Parkway is to take your time. Stop at the points of interest along the way, and I'll let you know where the best ones are so you can just take it all in.
Yeah.
Be prepared to stop frequently and get out to enjoy the sights. You might find that some people want to speed around you, but don't get caught up in that. Just relax, stick to the speed limit of 90 kilometers per hour. There can be a lot of animal activity anywhere along this highway too. And There are no fences here.
Dried cherries.
On this drive, we're going to see spectacular mountains, glaciers, and lakes. And hopefully, we'll see a few animals along the way too. You'll learn about some of the rugged pioneers who first came here, and you'll even have the opportunity to walk on a glacier. I hope we've allowed all day for this trip to truly enjoy it. Come on, let's go.
That's it, much can eat. Yeah. Because my mommy's ears are popping. I know I'm sure yours are popping. The one there. She likes the cherries.
Oh my goodness. Why are the lakes so blue and beautiful? Like,
Because they're not polluted, that's why.
Yeah, it's all water.
guess, eh?
Snow melted.
And they're coming from the glacier, so they're not polluted.
Glaciers is what the words are, right? Glaciers.
glaciers, whatever, it's the same. But yes.
Yeah, you like those cherries. We got
Water is life, right?
Yeah.
And that's why people are fighting for it. Because they can't drink the water. The fish can't live in the water because it's polluted. Crap. Oh.
Oui, les glaciages. Les glaciages. I don't know how to say it. They're glaciers. It's just
The glacier.
glaciers.
What'd you say, guys?
She's telling her all the names of all the different things in French, and then she's like, I don't know how to say glaciers. Oh, you gotta be kidding me. What is going on here?
Slow.
It says be careful on stopping. Right?
Oh my gosh, there's a bear!
Oh,
Right there.
grizzly bear.
No, that's a black bear.
A black bear, I mean, yeah.
Hey, can you get out of the way? Do you mind?
Get out. We're trying to see.
Right, this side.
Oh my gosh.
Wait, no. We can't get out, Rod. Oh, you can't see because he's following it.
Oh my god, are you kidding me? What a fucking asshole!
What an ass. Yeah, no.
What a fucking asshole!
Oh my gosh.
Can't see it
Piece
now.
of
It's
shit.
gone because he's following it. Oh well, never mind, love. We'll see more. Don't worry, love.
Unreal.
How mean is that?
Unreal.
Unbelievable!
Whatever, just go, Ronnie. Yeah. But
No,
that
Rod.
means we have to go back. Come on, Rod.
Oh,
Can you
you
stop
see-
that, please, Mom?
See the bear? We
Yeah.
can see it on the video.
Yeah, exactly why I spun around.
and he's
What a fucking jackass! What an asshole!
He's had a look at the bird.
Unbelievable!
Now leave the bear alone. Other people want to take photographs.
Well, they have lots of opportunities to do it. Ronnie, you're gonna scare the bear.
That asshole's been driving right beside it for like fucking 5 minutes.
Gosh. Not fair.
There's bears here too because they're probably out. Can't see them.
Yeah, they're just stopping because of the bear, yeah.
Let's go back in time, way back. In 1899, a pair of avid mountaineers named Norman Colley and Herman Woolley hired Bill Pato, a locally famous mountain guide whose picture you may have seen on the welcome sign to Banff, to guide them to a destination unknown. Colley and Woolley had been to the Rockies before and had researched a variety of maps drawn by other climbers, but they couldn't find anyone who had identified or
Get your pictures and then go,
large
alright?
white mass they'd seen from the summit of one of their
Selfish.
previous climbs. Their collection of maps indicated a large vacant area that had not been explored and mapped. With a little bit of careful planning, Colley and Woolley put together a trip that was expected to take more than a month, starting from Lake
No, that was
Louise.
a black bear.
Bill Pato brought his horses up from Banff, while Colley and Woolley arrived at Lake Louise by train to meet him.
That's
Now,
pretty
I'll
cool. We
refer
saw a
back
bear
to the
though.
trek of Colley and Woolley from time to time to give you a comparison of the easy highway travel of today compared to the tough trekking they did through this area more than 100 years ago.
Okay, give me a minute. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. This way. L'autre façon. Je peux t'étirer l'autre façon? This way. There we go. Oh yeah. Snuggling in. Got your snack.
They won't be on this side. It's big cliffs. That's the furthest that side.
Oui, c'est bon. It has a little sweet taste to it.
Oh no, this forest here too.
Merci. Oh non, ok. C'est correct, c'est qu'on n'a pas fini avec, on n'a pas fini avec. Oui, les arbres, regarde les arbres. Regarde les arbres. Oui. Ça, c'est avion, ça. Miaou. Miaou, miaou, miaou. Boum. Tu n'en vas plus? D'accord. Voilà. Ouh, il est tombé. On va le chercher.
You know, it's not even like they had a normal car. They had a giant billboard blocking everything.
All right, my friends, time for a quick geology lesson about how this fantastic landscape was created.
Because she looked at me and was like, what the fuck are you going to do about it?
Half a billion years or
That's
so
why.
in the next 10 minutes. I'm giving you a really brief overview. In fact, maybe a little too simplified for some. But I want to share with you the general concepts about how these beautiful mountains were created. The first of those concepts for us to consider is tectonic plates. Now, most of us remember from our schooling that the Earth is covered by massive plates of rock, and that these plates move, albeit very slowly across the Earth's surface. The speed is about the same as how fast our fingernails grow. As an example, today, the Pacific Plate is moving northwest towards Japan. We're reminded of this when earthquakes occur in places like Chile and Japan. Most of us are aware of places like the San Andreas Fault in the western North American continent and the risk of the big one occurring along the line from LA to Vancouver Island and Alaska. Think of it like this. The plates look something like when you crack the shell of a hard-boiled egg. You can compare the way the plates move to being like if you had a bunch of floating mats in a swimming pool. Give one mat a gentle push, and it causes the other mats to move too. Some mats get pushed forward in the same direction, some scrape sides with each other. I guess that would be the equivalent of an earthquake.
Lost.
Now, getting back to the Earth's tectonic plates moving, well, back around 500 million years ago, this area that we're now in was the edge of the continent. Yes, you would have owned beachfront property here. And not only that, but this area around us was all located about where the equator is. Imagine, winter's here with no snow. I'll tell you more up ahead.
Tu vois celle-là? Tu la cherches? Tu l'as-tu? You got it? You got it? You got it? What? What? Give her time almost with a good hit there. What? Oh! Ça, c'est du morceau de chocolat, ça. Et tu l'as échappé, t'es comme, je vais la boire, je vois la... Trying to eat this big cherry, dried cherry, and she's like dozing off.
Right.
Yeah. Tylenol kicked in too, I think. I know Tylenol makes people tired. Is that true? Would that happen? No, it wouldn't.
Shouldn't know.
So while this area was near the equator about 450 million years ago, there was an explosion of sea life in the warm, shallow waters that provided our waterfront property. The bodies of these creatures provide much of the organic matter, like calcium carbonate, that created the types of rocks we see here. Those materials and minerals layered on the bottom of the sea over a very long time. And under heavy pressure from new layers above, bands of sedimentary material was compacted together and layers of rocks were formed. All those layers were flat, non-mountainous. Now a whole range of different factors like different minerals, vegetation, and organisms create different rock composition, and different amounts of pressure, timing, oxygen levels, and a host of other factors create different types of rocks. So while all of the rocks in the Rockies were formed in the same way, in sedimentary layers, within those layers there are different types of sedimentary rock. Some sedimentary rocks are quite strong, like limestone, whereas others are weaker and suffer the effects of erosion more quickly, like sandstone, or the much more brittle layers like shale. Sometimes, if there was a lot of vegetation material in the layer, we might even end up with coal, or if conditions are just right, hydrocarbons are trapped and concentrated, and that's when you'll find natural gases and oil in rock layers. So that is our second concept. Layers of different types of rock were formed at the bottom of a warm, shallow sea here. Coming up on the left is a view of Hector Lake, the largest natural lake in Banff National Park. You can walk down to the lake, but it would take a couple of hours or so, so unless we had planned to do this today, most likely it's something we can simply look at as we drive past. This would be campsite number 1 for our mountain explorers, Norman Colley and Herman Woolley. It's taken us about 15 minutes to drive here. Imagine if you can, working your way up through this valley, having to cut down trees to search your way around. Our early trekkers would have had to get through blown down areas of fallen trees, old fires, rock outcroppings, bogs, and may have even met a few grizzly bears along the way.
That would be fun too, taking a tour bus. Instead of driving, just go on all these tours with the bus.
Well, that's basically what we're doing.
Yeah.
It's weird. Don't know if it'd be all that different for you.
All that different for me, I suppose. If I had the GPS, I could be driving. I don't mind driving.
That wasn't a shot, Mom.
I know it wasn't. I'm just thinking about my own Mona. And my little adventures. Like Gimli and Selkirk.
On either side of us now are Mount Hector
maybe the States.
and Hector Lake. Both of these were named after Dr. James Hector, leader of an exploratory and scientific outfit called the Palliser Expedition. Their job was to find out what existed in the frontier of the West, as well as to find out if the colony of Canada was even inhabitable. His exploration and mapping earned him the honor of having these peaks named after him. His maps covered this area and north of where we are now. His detailed maps were part of the inspiration for the mountaineering expedition of Norman Colley and Herman Woolley some years later. All right, let's move forward in time about 300 million years. So it's now 175 million years ago. Our flat layers of sedimentary rock have formed where there was once a shallow, warm sea teeming with life. At this time, the Pacific and North American tectonic plates began colliding to form what we know as Western Canada. All of this happened in super slow motion, but the collision started to force the ocean bed up to become land above the water level. In fact, British Columbia was added to the continent as dry land in this way. All the activity at the newly formed coastline also led to volcanic activity, as molten magma was forced up and out in places where the mantle had been weakened by the plates crashing into each other. That's why the geology of the mountains west of here is different. In the coast mountains, like around Whistler, we have both sedimentary and igneous rock formations. The forces of the plates were felt way over here too, more than 1,000 kilometers or 700 miles away. But the Canadian Rockies are uniquely different because these mountains were purely formed by movement and upthrusting of sedimentary layers. There are no volcanoes here. This is why it's extremely rare to find any granite here. Whereas if we even go to the first mountain range west of here, the Purcell Mountains, we could find evidence of volcanic activity in the existence of granite spires and towers. That's our third concept. The Canadian Rockies were formed purely by sedimentary layers being pushed upwards towards the sky.
I think it might be more beautiful than, like, the mountains are more beautiful than Yellowstone, I think. It's different.
Yeah.
What do you think? But
I like mountains.
Mosquito Creek. Now isn't that an inviting name for a campground and hostel? However, the rumor is that it's not named because of the swarms of insects. It was named after Johnny Mosquito. You know, Johnny Mosquito. He was one of the workers who helped construct the original road through this area. This was his favorite place to camp and relax.
So. In zoos.
Mosquito Creek Campground and Hostel is open year-round and offers hostel beds and unserviced campsites. Many hikers and cyclists navigate the Icefields Parkways, and Mosquito Creek is the first of 18 camping and hostel facilities that are situated along the way. These facilities are spaced out, so roughly every 20 kilometers or a day's hike, there will be an accommodation option for the traveler. In the Canadian Rockies, time cannot be measured by drilling in a straight line through the rocks. Those forces that pushed the layers of rock that had been below the seas were incredibly powerful. In some places, a giant vertical crack would form. Then, one chunk of layer would be forced up and over top of the other. So, if we took a core sample from top to bottom, we might find young rock on top, then old rock, then another layer of young rock. And then another layer of old rock, but no older than the middle layer, even though it's way, way lower. Sounds confusing even to me. Here's my favorite analogy. Take a Kit Kat finger, break it in half, put one half flat on the table, then lean the other half so the broken part is sitting on top of the flat piece, but the broken part is pointing up. That's the Canadian Rockies. And the same as you see on the ridges of wafers and the broken part of the Kit Kat, that's the same as how we see the ridging that is unique to the Rockies. Not every formation is perfectly neat like that. Sometimes layers were forced up and then tip onto their side. Other times the rock layers didn't break, but just bent under the pressure. That's why we see so many fascinating formations here in the Rockies.
it's so surreal. Like, look at them.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah.
Can you see it, Jane? Look how tall they are.
Soon we'll arrive at Crowfoot Glacier and then Bow Lake, both worthwhile stops to make. This area was also a special place for one of Banff's legendary guides, Jimmy Simpson. He fell in love with this area the first time he saw it and decided right away that Bow Lake would be the perfect place to build a lodge, run his bighorn sheep hunting operation for tourists. That was back in the day when hunting was frowned upon, but somewhat tolerated in the park. It took time to get permission from Parks Canada, but Jimmy's determination, wily character won out, and he got to build his lodge. It wasn't easy though. Everything was built by hand. The trees available here for building are quite short because of the cold alpine climate. Some crafty mountain inspiration led Jimmy to make the lodge hexagonal, so he could build a good-sized building using the short trees found here. Jimmy's guiding business grew over the years, and he eventually raised a family here too. Not all that easy of a task in what was still remote wilderness. In 1940, the Icefields Parkway road construction reached Bow Lake, and Jimmy was pleased as punch at the new business the roadway was going to bring. He named his lodge Namtija. This is the Stoney Indian word for pine marten, which is a weasel that you'll find a whole lot of in the forests around here. Coming up on our left, we're going to see an excellent example of a hanging glacier. Let's pull into the viewpoint and take a picture. This type of glacier is one that sticks to a steep mountain face and looks like it's just hanging there. This hanging glacier is called Crowfoot Glacier because, amazingly, it looks like the foot of a crow. This crow's foot used to have 3 toes, but the shrinking of the glacier has caused it now to only have 2 toes. See if you can make out the shape. You should also see a tunnel in the glacier, too. That's caused by the meltwater flowing under the ice. After we take our photos, just keep continuing the same way.
So.
Yeah, you can't miss it. It's like ice over the cliff.
Oh yeah, way up the top there.
Yeah.
I see.
Just turn around, but makes it easy for mommy and mom just to see. See it now?
Pretty neat, eh?
It's amazing.
Collie and Wooly are intrepid explorers. Their guide, Bill Pato, knew of this lake because the word was out that Jimmy Simpson was setting up a camp here. This is Bow Lake, the source of the Bow River. We can turn into the viewpoint if you want to take a picture. The glacier above the lake is, as you guessed it,
Still
Bow
ice on it.
Glacier. So if you began your journey in Calgary, you would have passed over the Bow River in the city. Some of the water flowing through the city would be water that is melted off of this glacier. We catch glimpses of the red roof of Jimmy Simpson's Numpty Jaw Lodge. Visitors are welcome to stop in for lunch or a snack here at the restaurant, and the turnoff for the lodge is coming up on the left.
It's unbelievable, eh?
Canada, huh? I wonder what that red thing is over there.
He said in the thing.
What did he say it was?
Something about it was some kind of lodge.
Oh yeah, the guy who's built the lodge. A hunting lodge. We got a picture of that, eh? Yeah. Look at the water frozen.
Look what he's driving.
Hey?
Look what he's driving.
And who is it that's driving?
That looks like a little kid.
See, the snow's come down and knocked all the trees. Bad poop or moose poop on that. Big chunks of it.
We are on the approach to Bow Summit. This is the high point of the tour. Literally, it's the highest elevation at 6,787 feet, or just over 2,050 meters. At the summit is a viewpoint for the famous Pato Lake, named after pioneer packer and guide Bill Pato. If the weather is halfway decent, Pato Lake is the most spectacular lake we'll see along the parkway, and this is one of the very best photo opportunities in the entire Rockies. The sunnier the day, the more amazing the color of the lake. And I hear one of you ask why? Well, my friend, let me tell you. It's due to flour. Rock flour, that is. As the glaciers move over the bedrock, they continually grind and pulverize the rock, forming the ultra-fine rock flour. This rock flour is then washed out in the meltwater and suspended in the lake water. The glacial flour absorbs most of the sunlight spectrum of light as it hits the lake, except from the blue-green colors, which are reflected back. This is a stop we will not want to miss, and I'll point out the turn up ahead. At 6,800 feet of elevation, this area is not incredibly high by world standards, but if you're from sea level, you'll be surprised how short of breath you may find yourself, even on the short walk from the car park to the viewpoint.
We gotta go for a pee anyway.
a good sign just ahead pointing to the entrance for Pado Lake. Let's turn in and take a look. Okay, if we're driving a car, please only park in the car park designated for regular vehicles. Then it's just a short walk to the viewpoint. Take your time walking and stop for a rest if you feel short of breath. If we're in reasonable health, we are nowhere near an elevation that would pose any risk, but you may be well surprised at how it affects you. After we're done, we'll drive back and continue on the Icefields Parkway.
We walked up here, Dad and I. Watch.
We'd have to take turns.
We'll go then. I'll stay in the car. How long will you be?
I don't know. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
And then
Mom's gonna go along. Or what? She can't go. Oh, it's not what's wrong.
well, if Mom's gonna wait in the car, we'll just go up. We'll drive up.
Shall I open the window a little bit?
No, we'll just drive up.
You can't, it says. You have to walk.
You can.
No, Rodney, you says you can't. No, I'm doing just a little smidgen.
It's gonna be close.
There's a spot for handicap parking up there, it says.
Yeah, but I don't have my ticket.
Yeah, but we'll walk up and then we'll come back and then we'll drive up and you can go.
It's okay. It's okay for me, I don't mind.
Or hmm?
It's cold.
It's cold.
Don't slam the door.
Drive safely. Recording started.
No. Mom said he was just there cleaning it, so.
They've just been in cleaning. I think somebody must have complained. The colour of that car is horrible. That was what I was going to get. Mono was the colour or the other colour. Or red or burg or some shitty grey or something. I don't know what it was. I don't know what it was.
Oh my gosh. It was quite a hike, that's for sure.
Yeah, Mom says she remembers being out of breath when I was a boy.
I went up halfway and I sat down and Dad went up with Rodney.
Crazy.
When you're not used to it. Did you walk right to the top? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It was
Did you
worth
feel
it.
anything? Did you feel like you were getting out of breath?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you have water, Rod?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Isn't that your water?
That's yours.
No, I'm asking for. I have water.
Is that mine?
Yeah, that's yours. Yeah.
Okay.
I just wanted to, because I was gonna get some water in the back.
So you didn't drink this?
I didn't touch that one.
Okay.
She took hers and took her label off.
Mine's still in the bag.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Can you open it up for me, please? Thank you.
Oh, that was beautiful. That's yours.
Thank you.
Let me tell you about our friend Bill Pato. He was an immigrant from England who became a guide, earning the respect of local mountain men and travelers alike with his ability to traverse some of the most dangerous areas in Banff National Park with his guests in tow. After arriving in Canada, Pato traveled from coast to coast to try his hand at a variety of careers, such as working for the CPR, that being the railroad, homesteading and prospecting, before he settled into life in Banff, where he entered into an outfitting business with Tom Wilson in 1894. Later in life, Pato became one of Banff's first park wardens, and he also served Canada in the First World War. Bill Pato was known as quite a colorful fellow. There are many legendary stories that surround him. He was said to have enjoyed his solitude. One story pertains to the naming of the lake we just visited. Bow Summit used to be a popular campsite used by Bill and his colleagues. Not that many folks found their way this far into the wilderness. Legend has it that Bill Pato would often pack up his campsite in the evening and head down to the shores of the lake, complaining as he left his companions around the fire that it was just a little too crowded for him. From that point on, it became known as Pato Lake.
I'm not taking pictures because I'll probably get some off you after, won't I?
What's that?
Pictures. You can take
Oh, yeah.
get some of the pictures, send them to me.
It's Bambi Road. Nice for being in the car.
Mm-hmm.
Or your feet.
Okay. I'm charging up as we go down the hill.
Hey,
I'm charging up as we go down the hill.
really?
Oh yeah,
So you're not next you got it in neutral?
pretty much.
No, God, you've got to go to another car, haven't you?
No, it's designed to do that.
But you can still brake though.
Oh yeah.
And then it goes back into the regular. Going awfully fast.
Everything has an attack here.
Perched on the side of the mountain here is Snowbird Glacier, and it's one of my favorites. See if you can make out how it got its descriptive name. Can you see how the bird's wingspan opens wide below the summit of Mount Patterson? How about its long neck pointing downwards? It looks like a big white bird diving towards the lake and brown below. Snowbird Glacier has a unique shape and deserving of its own name. However, many glaciers in the Rockies don't have a name. It's usually only the larger glaciers that get official names, while many of the smaller hanging glaciers have no name or only get local nicknames. Let's wrap up my introduction to the geology of these beautiful mountains that surround us for this drive. We've heard how the plates of the Earth are moving and sometimes they crash into each other. We learned how this was once a warm sea and layers of rocks formed from largely organic material. Then when the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate collided,
The route guidance will start now. At least one toll road is included in the current route. Continue on current road for more than 50 kilometers.
what's called upthrusting and subduction. So now it's time to add some other forces. How about millions and millions of years of rain and wind? Now remember, some layers were strong and resisted erosion, others weak and brittle and disappeared more quickly. Let's throw in some ice ages, glaciers a mile thick moving over the rocks, and the weight of the glacier grinding and pulverizing rock in its path, shaping the mountainsides and valleys beneath them. It's a bit of a complicated mix, but all of those actions leave us with these beautiful mountains that we enjoy today. And of course, the forces of erosion and ice haven't stopped. In another 100 million years, these mountains will look a whole lot different than they do today. But for now, I love what we have, and I'm sure you do too. Now from the passenger side, it's hard not to be drawn to that giant mountain on the right. This is Mount Weed, named after George Weed, an American climber who traveled with our Trekkies, Collie and Wooly. Though it was officially named in 1903, 4 years after the expedition that we're following, it was not climbed for the first time until 1936. Though it's not a particularly difficult peak to climb, very few attempts are made on this peak. That would be because for serious mountain climbers, there are many more exciting challenges available to them in this small area. The big pyramid-shaped peak ahead of us on the left is Mount Kefren. The area between us and Kefren has frequently been the home territory of female grizzly bears, though this is a smaller area than normal for a grizzly bear. Males will travel much further than females and will typically cover thousands of square kilometers. But the forested area to our left is a natural pocket that offers everything a female grizzly needs to successfully raise her cubs, and females have been successful here as mothers. 2 small lakes here provide them with some marshy areas where lots of rich food exists and where there's little disturbance from people hiking through. The campground here always remains closed until any mother moves from the valley bottom up to the higher slopes. Through the trees, you'll be able to see the first of 2 waterfowl lakes. We'll drive alongside the second waterfowl lake. These lakes were day 4 and 5 for Collie and Woolie's expedition. Mount Kefren is now really coming into view. Its unique shape and size have made it a popular challenge for climbers, like many other peaks found along the Icefields Parkway. Since the pioneer climbing days of Collie and Woolie, climbing has changed significantly, including the risks climbers assume and what they expect for rescue. Now, here's an example of what it used to be like. This is a story of some young climbers in the early 20s who wanted to make a first summit of one of the peaks along the Icefields Parkway. After getting all the logistics sorted out, they joined a guide and horsepacker who led them to their base camp. Once they set up their camp, he left them and arranged to see them in 2 months, after their climbing was done. After camp was built, their next task was to scout out their mountain. They made a few short trips to see their peak, but a disaster happened on one outing that put the young men in a perilous situation. One of the lads tripped while scrambling over some deadfall, and he broke his femur. Now, this is a serious injury that can result in death even when medical attention is nearby. For these 2 climbers, rescue was out of the question, so they had to save themselves. They chose to simply splint the leg and wait for it to heal before heading back towards the railway, several days' hike away. Luckily for them, as they started their journey out, 6 weeks later, they were met by another group traveling through the area. The other group helped them to reach their pickup point on the day they were expected. That must have been a very lucky escape. Today, our expectation is fast and effective rescue with medical attention right away. Climbers often carry a satellite phone, and a quick call will alert mountain rescue. A helicopter can arrive within an hour with fully trained medics on board to care for the injured and bring them home. Bit of a far cry from the risks that the pioneers had to make in the early days.
coast, I think.
Directly ahead, we'll see a peak with a large glacier. Well, actually, it's an ice field, sloping off its backside. This is Mount Wilson, named after Tom Wilson, another pioneering character of this area. Tom Wilson spent winters in the valley that we're approaching now. It was a really nice area to keep his horses with the Saskatchewan River running through. Tom would often spend the entire winter here, totally by himself. Kind of makes you wonder about why some of these rugged mountain men we talk about choose to live such isolated lives. Did they find it difficult to fit in with a more normal society of the day? One year, Tom invited Jimmy Simpson for Christmas dinner at his cabin. Jimmy spent the winters back on Bow Lake. On December 20th, Jimmy put on his snowshoes and a heavy pack and headed off for Tom's cabin. There was no trail to follow, so Jimmy had to work hard to get through the fresh snow. He camped under the stars every night, in temperatures less than minus 20 degrees Celsius. He finally reached Tom Wilson's cabin on the day of Christmas Eve. That evening, Jimmy and Tom sat down and enjoyed a drink, some conversation. Then the next morning, Christmas Day, Tom prepared a Canada Goose for dinner. That evening, as they sat around, relaxing, feeling well-fed, Tom asked Jimmy, "So when the hell are you leaving?" Jimmy replied, "In the morning. I guess 2 days is more than enough company for that winter." And sure enough, on December 26th, Jimmy repacked and snowshoed for 4 days back to his place. Talk about true men of the mountains who lived extensive periods of time alone by choice. There's a nice, short, but worthwhile walk coming up. If we're interested, we'll see a parking area that you can pull into. The Staya Canyon is really impressive, and only a 5 or 10 minute walk downhill. At the bottom, there's a bridge over the gorge, and you get a great view of how the water has cut through the rock to create the narrow canyon. All up, it should only take about 30 minutes to do the return trip. But I'll warn you that though it's short, the return uphill leg is a bit on the steep side. For Collie and Wooly, day 6 presented them with a challenge to get through this narrow part of the valley, but a welcome change awaited them on the other side.
Mini Winnie. Mini Winnie meaning Winnebago, but a mini one. Maybe get one of them. You can rent it for 2 weeks and go on a trip somewhere. Jimmy's boat.
Wouldn't surprise me.
What's the first bit of rubbish I've seen?
We'll see a warden's cabin coming up ahead. There's unlikely to be a warden there, but there is a phone for emergencies. As you may have noticed, there isn't a whole lot of cell phone signal for most of the Icefields Parkway. We're descending towards the North Saskatchewan River. This has been designated as a Canadian Heritage River. The river was a significant turning point for David Thompson, one of the earliest explorers of Western Canada. The North Saskatchewan River was an important river to the fur trade, which was the main reason for the movement of white men into this area more than 2 centuries ago. Just over the bridge is the junction of Highway 11, also known as the David Thompson Highway. We're going to continue straight along the Icefields Parkway towards Jasper. David Thompson Highway provides access to Rocky Mountain House and Red Deer, which lies almost central between Edmonton and Calgary on Highway 2. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about David Thompson up ahead. This is the junction with the highway to Rocky Mountain House in central Alberta. We're going to keep going straight here to stay on the Icefields Parkway. Past the junction is the Saskatchewan crossing. This is the last gas opportunity for about another hour. There's also a restaurant here and a chance to pick up some snacks and supplies. There's a hotel here if you want to be sure of finding a place to stay. That is, if they have any vacancy. There are not many hotel-style accommodations along the Icefields Parkway. The crossing claims to have the world's biggest postcard collection. Might want to stop in and see if that's true. Though we don't get a direct view of it, on the other side of the trees to the left is Glacier Lake. This is day 7 for Collie and Wooly. Proved to be an interesting one. They decided to build a raft to cross Glacier Lake, while the horses worked their way through the swampy areas along the shoreline. The wind came up as they were halfway across the lake and blew them all the way back to their starting point. In frustration, they set up camp and spent another day there until the wind died down. It was day 9 before they would get moving again. best map maker in Canadian history, or at least the best of his time, and his maps were the primary reference for the next 100 years after that. He pioneered a route through this area in 1807 while trying to build trade relationships with natives on behalf of his employer, the Northwest Company. Traveling up the North Saskatchewan River by canoe and on horseback, he eventually reached the Columbia River, where he created the first trading outpost. For 3 years, he traded supplies, including guns, with the Kootenai Indians in exchange for valuable furs. Everything seemed to be going well until the Kootenai started using their guns against their rivals, the Blackfoot Indians. Upon returning to this area in 1810, a tribe of the Blackfoot Indians blocked David Thompson from using his favored pass to the Columbia Valley. The Blackfoot were determined to stop the trade of guns to their enemies, and in the end, David Thompson was forced to travel further north and find a new pass through the mountains. Both of the passes Thompson discovered became critical routes through the mountains for trade. Today, they are National Historic Sites because of their importance to the fur trade and Western exploration. The original pass David Thompson discovered is known as Howe's Pass. The second route he discovered is known as Athabasca Pass. Today, thanks to the national parks protecting them, both of these passes and their trails are not much different from what they were like in the early years. This is an interesting little feature. Up on our right, you can see how melting snow and water have created a washout here. We've already explained the big factors of how geological forces and glaciers created the shape of our valleys and mountains. But we should not underestimate the erosive and constant power of water. Every day, the mountains wear down a little, thanks to water washing things away piece by piece, speck by speck. With a washout like this one, once those rocks come down to valley level, they aren't going high back in the mountains again. At Rampart Creek, another of the streams that feeds into the North Saskatchewan River. This is the site of one of the more remote campgrounds along the parkway, and you can sometimes find a vacant site here if other campgrounds are full. There's also a hostel along Rampart Creek that sleeps 30. A rampart is a defensive wall that was used when building castles. Ramparts will often have towers above them where soldiers or guards have observation or weapons posts. In this case, the name Rampart is a good description of the lower walls of rock beneath Mount Wilson on our right. This is a bit of a different view of Mount Wilson than we had back before the North Saskatchewan River Bridge.
A lot of the kids are still in school.
That's right. Right up on the top of the mountain, see? Looks like something like a structure or something, but it's probably just a rock.
I don't think so. It looks like a tower of some kind.
Yeah. Well, if it is, he would have said something. Our guide.
Well, maybe he will when we get closer.
Directly ahead, we should see the wide, flat valley of the Saskatchewan River, where the Alexandra River joins it. Both these rivers begin at the Columbia Icefields and have created the very flat open floodplain around us. This area was a popular spot for hunting parties because the flat open areas made a great place to skin carcasses. You could easily see and scare away any predators who might be tempted to approach and try to get a free feed. And of course, this all happened well before any road was constructed here. Over time, the number of animal bones here increased to a point that this place came to be called the graveyard. Now today, you won't find any more bones, but the sun-bleached driftwood left by seasonal flooding kind of looks like old bones and gives us an eerie reminder of times past.
The movie with DiCaprio, I think, was filmed in here. There's a movie with DiCaprio, I think, was filmed in here.
What was the movie called?
No. It's the one he finally won an Oscar for. I can't remember. It honestly wasn't even his... It was good, but it wasn't even his best.
Was it a cowboy thing?
Kind of. Revenge story. He gets left for dead, and then he has to go back and get revenge. It's good. It was on Netflix for a while. Can't remember the name though.
You think it was male?
I think so. He filmed it around Banff. I know that.
Yeah, there's quite a few movies being made around here on the Badlands.
On the mountainside on our left, we've been seeing a series of particularly well-formed avalanche paths and chutes. Notice how they begin as wide funnel shapes, but turn into narrow alleyways. Imagine all that snow and ice being forced to follow such a narrow path, concentrating all that energy. Helps us appreciate how all that destructive power is generated. right is Mount Coleman.
The route guidance will start now. At least one toll road is included in the current route.
Lead on. The rock bands up above, no, not AC/DC, the actual rock bands up above, are a very common area for mountain goats. So as we drive along this section, keep your eyes on the slopes for little white dots on the cliff. These could be mountain goats. We'll soon see a turnoff for the Mount Coleman day use area. It's a great place for a picnic, and a good, comfortable place to get off the road and stand for goats on the cliff. If we were prepared enough to bring binoculars, it's worth scanning any white dots you might see. Sometimes it's easy to mistake mountain goats for bighorn sheep. Mountain goats are definitely a clean white color, whereas bighorn sheep tend to be a bit more dirty brown color. There are, of course, many other differences, but the color is usually the first giveaway. For our courageous climbers, Wooly and Collie, they're now starting day 12 on their journey from Lake Louise. It's been almost 2 weeks, and they still have a ways to go before they reach the bottom of the mountains that they're interested in climbing. We should see the day use area coming up here soon.
Revenant. That was the name of the movie.
The what?
The Revenant.
The Revenant. Oh, I think I saw that, yeah. Didn't like it.
That was alright.
Now you need to look up on the right. See that incredible gap at the top of the lower ridge? Depending on the time of year, there might be a waterfall flowing through it. In the winter, it appears as a frozen waterfall. Remember how we talked about the strength of water in shaping the Canadian Rockies? Though that gap may have started as a crack, it's flowing water that is carved into what we see today. From where we are now, we only really get to see the lower ridges of the mountains above us. Though these walls are spectacular in themselves, from here we have no perspective of just how much that mountain towers above us. In about 5 minutes, we're going to begin a long climb. Along that climb, we'll have an amazing view back to this point, where you'll see how things look just above these lower sections.
Waterfall! That's amazing. Nice.
Can you drink that water?
I don't think so. It's funny you say that because I was thinking about it, but it's packed away.
Yeah, well, pull over, get yourself a slice of pizza and just get back on the road.
No, maybe when we stop at the Icefields. I know. Well, we got one more stop, and then I think it's pretty much straight shot.
The valley gets noticeably tighter here, leaving us with steep cliffs on both sides of us. The cliff coming into view with the trickle of waterfall is called the Weeping Wall. Snow melting from above us flows down this cliff face all year round, creating a pretty waterfall in summer and a spectacular icefall in winter. Ice climbers flock to these ice falls in the winter to climb the gigantic frozen falls that develop. In this area, the valley is so narrow, avalanches are relatively common, especially in the spring when warmer temperatures cause the snowpack to get heavier and slipperier. If an avalanche comes down into a narrow valley like this, it doesn't always stop just on the road because it's reached the bottom. The energy and momentum of the wall of snow will often travel uphill on the opposite side of the valley. So sometimes we're faced with a strange sight of a whole load of trees that are pushed down, but they're pushed down facing uphill. Since the snow will be long ago melted, it's a bit of a strange sight. Another event that can happen is that the snowpack is released only halfway through its depth. So what can happen is the bottom half of the trees are held securely in the snowpack that's stable, but the avalanche wipes out the top half of the trees. So it looks like someone has come through and just chainsawed the tops of the trees off. These avalanche events are different every year, so it's always worth looking at nearby fresh avalanche locations to see if you can work out exactly what happened. Now do take notice of the reduced speed limit through here. Off in the distance, slightly to the left, is Mount Andromeda, one of the biggest peaks in this area. It's the one with a big glacier draped across its face. To its left is the Saskatchewan Glacier, the source of the river beside us. This is also the route used by Collie and Woolley to reach the Columbia Icefields. The Saskatchewan Glacier is the easiest glacier we can use to access the Columbia Icefields, so it was purely good luck that they chose to approach from this direction. The glacier is not very steep, easy to walk, and doesn't have many dangerous crevasses to fall into as steeper glaciers. However, this glacier is one of the biggest, so Collie and Woolley would have felt incredibly small stepping onto its giant surface. For Collie and Woolley, this was day 17 on their climbing journey. They struggled up the Saskatchewan Glacier and through this pass for 2 days. After hiking up the glacier, they chose to climb a mountain that gave them a view no other person had seen. They had found the Columbia Icefields.
Which box?
I can remember driving
brown
this
box?
with your dad.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the brown, like...
certain areas trigger something for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good job. Blow your nose. Blow your nose. Ooh. I'm gonna get something for you. Don't worry.
We are currently driving through a section that is known as the Big Bend. As you can see, the road has been chiseled right into the side of a cliff. We're also very close to the beginning, or the end if you prefer, of the Saskatchewan Glacier and the start of the river. Notice how narrow the river is here compared to a short while ago. This flat area is typical for an area that is close to the toe of a shrinking glacier. It's roughly flat, there's a lot of debris and not a lot of vegetation. We'll see more of this type of environment soon. Some of the debris here is pretty big. Do you know where those big boulders came from? Yes, I'm sure what you answered is correct. If we see one of those boulders coming, I do suggest we just get out of its way.
We're getting rain? unbelievable.
Hey.
It's unbelievable.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Not Amy.
Let's turn into this pullout on the right. Take in the view, grab a few photos of the North Saskatchewan River Valley. We can look back to where we just drove from, and you can start to get an idea of the cutting power of glaciers by looking at the shape of the valley bottom and the dominant peak on our left, Cirrus Mountain. Just like gigantic bulldozers, the ancient glaciers here plowed through the mountains, leaving U-shaped valleys with rocky peaks behind them. The bowl-shaped slopes higher on Cirrus Mountain, which were created by hanging glaciers, hold the water that tumbles over the Weeping Wall year-round.
It's starting to rain.
While we're here, we can also walk right to the end of the viewpoint parking lot, and we'll see Bridal Veil Falls, which you might agree is probably the most frequent name given to waterfalls.
You see that, bud?
I see it.
Yeah.
You see the falls?
Yeah, she saw it.
I see it. It's beautiful. Oh, much skin. Sounds really interesting. Ooh. You have a nice good nap munchkin.
That was a good kid.
Sure, I was.
Oh, it was that long, but
I timed it.
was it?
Do you want some cheese and crackers?
Ooh, that sounds good.
She's looking at me, she's like, I'm not sure. And then she's like, ooh, okay.
Yeah, I do. Don't mind if I do, Mom.
Oh my gosh, Rod, it's bumpy because of the pressure. Look how round it is, Mom.
Yeah.
Feel that power. Look how big it's expanded. Look at that. Feel it.
Because the pressure's changed.
Oh yeah. Oh, look at that one.
Isn't that neat? Yeah. That's pretty cool, but careful it doesn't blow out in your face.
Yeah,
Well, my coconut oil will probably have exploded then. It's in a bag, so.
Okay, well, let's have a little bit
In a bag.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't trust. We'll get milk when we get to Valemont.
I don't trust that milk either. Yeah, I wouldn't trust it either.
Well,
I was just telling Jay we'll get more milk when we get to Valemount, which should be hopefully within 2 hours.
yeah.
Trust her with the thing. It's like, I see this cracker. There's some cheese on it. I'm playing it.
Do you want to go, Rod?
No, thank you.
I will have one. My ears are popping. It's easy right now. Oh, that's the last one. Oh no. Wow. Yeah.
Years ago, funny.
Mind you. I'm not sure. I gave you something to eat so your ears don't pop.
As we reach this next bend in the road, if the weather is in any way being kind to us, we're going to catch a view of two magnificent peaks. Wow, I kind of feel like we're on a different planet right now. This is one of my favorite places on this drive, and I really mean it. It's a fantastic scene. From left to right, those peaks are Mount Athabasca and Mount Andromeda.
Oh my
Two
God.
of the largest peaks around the Columbia Icefields.
He wasn't kidding.
Mount
Holy
Athabasca is the mountain
shit.
that Collie and Wooly first
Like
saw
on
on
the
the
moon?
Columbia Icefield.
Wow. That's exactly what he said. It's like
Imagine
another
what
planet.
They were thinking when they looked down from that peak to the landscape surrounding them. This is the Canadian Rocky Mountains at its finest.
Yeah. Whoa.
We're getting so close to the Athabasca Glacier that I can feel the air cooling down. Coming up on our left is a parking area for Parker's Ridge.
Yeah.
That's the ridge above us on our left. There's a short but steep switchback trail that you can walk up to get to the top of the ridge. Though the walk
You're
is
all right?
steep, it is one of the
Oh,
most
that's weird.
rewarding short
Like
hikes you
puke
can do.
burped,
At
and
the
I saw
top of the
water in her
ridge,
mouth,
you
and
can
she
see
swallowed
what's on
back
the other
again.
side. What's so good to see over there? Well, just the Saskatchewan Glacier flowing out of the ice field that completely fills the valley like a long ice river.
Look over there.
You know, just absolute beauty. So long as the snow is cleared off the trail, I think you will really enjoy the incredible view from the ridge. If we're up to it, I really recommend taking this short hike.
Hey, sweetie, come on, I want you to swallow. Somebody's farting. Oh.
Blowing good toots.
Oh, even the sippy cup is like bursting. Every time I open it, it just like, boop.
Really?
Yeah.
Funny.
Good job. Get that pressure out of it. Yes, it looks like something's bothering her. She's got a quick put her finger on it. I tried having her swallowing more water. Tried having her eat something. She just doesn't want to eat. Right? Good job, yawn. Yawn helps to pop your. Yawning helps to unpop your ears skin. Yeah, dang.
Now, my friends, we are traveling into a raw landscape. This is an area where glaciers only relatively recently retreated, perhaps 1,000 years ago. Cold air that flows off the ice field pools in the valley. That means it's colder on the valley floor. That prevents plants from growing freely. Notice how no trees grow on the actual valley bottom here, but they do grow slightly above that layer of air. The temperature on the ground tends to only support less primitive plants and trees. We'll see this effect best when we pass the Jasper National Park sign. We are now close to the top of the tree line at approximately 7,000 feet. Trees and other vegetation in this area have an extremely short growing season. And some years it'll snow every single month. This area is known as the Ancient Forest due to the age of many of the trees. Although these forests are quite small, some of them are over 500 years old.
The route guidance will start now. At least one toll road is included in the current route. Continue on current road for more than 50 kilometers.
Jasper National Park was established in 1907, and by area, it's the largest national park in the Canadian Rockies, with over 10,800 square kilometers of protected area. Jasper is the wildest of the mountain parks and contains a superb backcountry trail system. And for many of us, it's an amazing experience to access the world-famous Columbia Icefields by road. There's not too many places in the world where you can do that. Jasper is internationally renowned for wildlife viewing. It is home to some of North America's rarest animals, including healthy populations of grizzly bears, moose, caribou, and wolves.
The mist on the mountains now.
Yeah, wow.
You see that, eh?
Mm-hmm.
That's like snow and water, eh?
I guess so. I don't know.
Like the top of the snow.
Okay, so now we're close to the Icefield Center, where you'll have a chance to take a ride on one of the special modified buses out onto the Athabasca Glacier. As we approach the Columbia Icefield and the Athabasca Glacier, let me explain the difference between a glacier and an ice field. Think of it like comparing lakes and rivers. An ice field is like a lake and contains the main body of ice. The glaciers are like the rivers and flow out from the ice fields. I have some cold, hard facts for you too. The ice field covers a total area of 325 square kilometers, which is roughly 125 square miles. Talk about one big ice cube.
Glad eating
The
it.
maximum depth of ice is 365 meters, or 1,200 feet.
Want me to drop the
Annual snowfall here is 7 meters, or 23 feet. The Athabasca Glacier that you can go onto has a length of 6 kilometers, or 3.7 miles, and a width of 1 kilometer, or just over a half mile. Back in 1898, for our early explorers, Collie and Woolley, day 19 had arrived, and they climbed to the summit of Mount Athabasca on your left, and looked beyond Mount Andromeda to the Columbia Icefield and over 300 kilometers
Oh,
Collie and
snack.
Woolley were the first humans to summit Mount Athabasca and view the Columbia Icefield. You'll want to take some care as the speed limit is reduced and sometimes patrolled. And there it is, the Athabasca Glacier coming into view on your left. What took Collie and Woolley 19 days has taken us less than half a day. The Icefield Center on the right is where the famous ice explorer, aka Snow Coaches, or aka the Glacier Adventure Tours, depart from. I recommend you take the ride onto the ice. For most people, walking on a glacier is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. To enter, we actually drive past the center and then turn right into the parking lot. The ticket office is inside, and tours leave every 15 minutes during the peak season.
Oh my gosh, look at that.
There's also a new but slightly controversial attraction that's accessed from the center, the Glacier Skywalk. That's a glass skywalk that extends from the edge of a cliff. You'll find details inside, but it's important to know that it can only be reached by using the bus transfer from the center. Inside, you'll also find Parks Canada's information center, as well as a great interpretive center and a few food services as well. Opposite the Icefield Chalet is a road that'll take us down to the parking area at the toe of the glacier. We should also do that short side trip. Oh, good. Let's go inside the center and see what's on offer. If you do decide to do the trip onto the glacier, take a water bottle with you and collect some of the water while you're there on the glacier. Some of it might be just snow melt, but some of it might be from 10,000-year-old ice. I've been told it makes a good scotch taste even better.
I've seen a bear statue there, and I thought, oh God, that's a bear, look, but it was a statue.
I got you, Ronnie.
You did, of course you did. Shut your butt.
I was wondering
Came
if
here
there's
with Dad too.
wow, look at that view, eh?
I know.
It's like, you know, almost
What
like
is this
in
guy
the
doing?
He's backing in.
Yeah, he's backing in.
Oh, so move away.
Okay, do it then. Thank you.
Oh, he's going to hit that car, come there. He's going to hit the car.
Oh, Mom, he has backup light camera. Here's what he's doing.
Going down over the
I'm
snow.
going to. I think I'm going to put my shoes on for this one.
Where are we
Well, we're
going
gonna
now?
walk.
Maybe, no? Is that out of the question?
Well, how
Where are
much
we
of a-
going? Walking right down there.
No, you take a bus down there. And it drives you up onto the glacier.
Okay, that's fine, love.
As I understand it, I've never done it.
Okay, so it's gonna be cold, obviously.
Well, let's see. Yeah, well, we're going to be
Oh,
standing.
it's raining. Munchkin needs pants. Munchkin needs a rain jacket and a toque. I actually have a toque for her. I think I brought a toque. Yeah. Rod.
It can't be that cold, is it?
No, but it's still. Munchkin has.
it is actually kind of chilly. Holy shit.
Yeah, Munchkin
It's a
doesn't
cold one.
Kind of, yeah.
We don't even have a winter jacket.
I've got no warm jacket.
Same here.
Fuck. Alright, well, whatever then. Should we just keep going?
Well, if you want to go, you go.
Well, I really want to go, but I don't have anything warm.
No, we hadn't planned on doing that, hun.
You should
Warm.
have said that we're getting.
Whatever.
No, not said, but I didn't realize it would be cold, Rodney.
I didn't think it would be cold either.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can't go, we can't go.
You want to take a picture of this? And
Okay.
have a picture of us taking their run?
No, it's fine.
You
I
sure?
mean, it's on the camera, so.
Dad, I don't think this is where Dad got the log from. He leaned over.
I gotta go to the bathroom and.
Yeah, that's where we went.
You went up there?
Dad and I, and you. When you were 2. But we didn't pay any money. I remember the car. We went down on the car.
Oh.
We walked a bit, I remember.
Are you good?
She's in now, yeah.
Okay, do you want your picture now?
I'll wait till we get out onto the highway.
The route guidance will start now. At least one toll road is included in the current
It was
route.
snowing there for a bit.
It's like blizzard, slushy snow. Crazy.
Your door is open.
My door?
Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering how the door got locked, but it was my bum when I was changing Munchkin. Pressing the button. Yeah.
I can't fucking believe that.
What?
$109 a person.
Even Abby.
Abby was cheaper. 16.
Oh, as if she's going to be bothered.
Oh, good.
No family package.
Let's go inside the center and see what's on offer.
Not really.
If you do decide to do the trip
With
onto the
Japanese
glacier,
So we have an hour and
take
a
a
half
water
left
bottle
with that
with you
rod?
and collect some of the water while you're there on the glacier.
Or Munchkin's.
The route guidance will start now. At least
Yeah, about an
one
hour and a
toll
half.
road is included in the current route.
I'm
Turn left,
sorry, I
then
can't get us
turn
home
left.
faster than that, but
Oh, I know, but I thought we thought we were gonna let Abby stretch every 2 hours. No?
well, isn't that was what this place was supposed to be?
Yes, but we'll have to figure something out, right?
Well, it's kind of cold to go
I'm
out
just
here, so
saying
we'll
right
find
now,
another
yeah.
little place.
Just
Stretch out,
saying, like,
okay?
like some other time, right? But like
Yeah.
not a time, but somewhere else.
You're in the deepest part of the valley right now, I guess. And the coldest because the ice glazy is there.
Oh yeah. Oui. So c'est de l'eau parce qu'il y a neigé dehors. Il y a mouillé puis neigé. Ça va de l'eau?
Well, my friends, I don't know what you think, but I think this is one of the most incredible places anywhere. It
I don't want
almost
the
makes
napkin
it
one.
seem like the glaciers around us are
It's gonna
becoming
fall.
routine, as if we just get used to them. If you went up onto the glacier, I hope you collected some glacial water. For another 10 minutes or so, we remain in this high alpine area, and then we slowly decrease our elevation down into the lower lying valleys.
Okay.
One of
Want
the
some
great things
pizza,
about Icefields
Jay?
Parkway
We'll have
is that it
one to
does
eat
not
first and then-
require driving
Yeah,
any
not really.
difficult
Yeah, well,
or
we could
treacherous
split a
mountain
piece.
passes. Even through winter,
Huh?
most of the time the road
I'm
is
not
well
particularly
maintained and
hungry,
remains
but
open.
Munchkin if I
From
have
here,
something.
we only
Yeah,
have about
you know
1 hour driving time to reach Jasper.
I'll have a piece.
But there are still
Well, we'll
more
split a
great
piece,
things
okay?
to see along the way. As we drive along this straight section, there are more examples of ancient forest around us.
Yeah, Jay.
Beneath Mount Wilcox on our right, there are a grove of spruce trees that are more than 500 years old.
Yeah, no.
The oldest tree is aged at close to 750 years old. A lot of things have happened on our planet since the oldest trees here first sprouted.
I know you want to stretch.
Well, look at that. More of those mysterious large boulders lying around a flat rubble field. I'm sure you figured out that these large boulders came from way up above on the mountainside. I'll ask you this though, what made them fall down? Any ideas? Well, it's actually water. I've spoken about how water is reshaping the Rockies, but when I did, I only really talked about it in terms of rain and flowing water, like streams and drainages. Water can break and shape rocks more dramatically in the form of ice. What happens is that water from melting snow or rain finds its way into cracks in the rock throughout the year. When temperatures drop, the water freezes, and you'll remember from your basic science days, water expands as it turns into ice. Freezing water at rock cracks can be strong enough to break the rock, sometimes causing small pieces to be released, sometimes large boulders, and sometimes the cracking is big enough to cause rock slides. With all these forces working against them, our Canadian Rocky Mountains are now actually shrinking.
I'm not sure what's going on with the road here. They just
Okay.
put the speed limit down, so.
I'm not Shan. I don't want you to tip the water everywhere. Okay?
Does she want a little bit of pizza?
No, she's alright for now.
In fact, the bus didn't say you're on.
No, they're like
Like hovercraft
Oh,
thing.
that's
Yeah.
look at the freaking glass thing. Do you have to pay to go there?
That's part of the $109 package, yeah.
Oh, gosh.
You can
We'll
walk
soon
out
be
onto that
upon
thing
the
for
impressive
$35.
structure that is the Glacier Skywalk. You'll see its glass walkway extending out from the cliff
Glass?
face. The walkway sits
No, it doesn't
above the
see that
Sunwapta
anyway.
River, which originates from the Athabasca Glacier, and the views go up and down the Sunwapta Canyon. There isn't an actual glacier view from the skywalk. Sunwapta is a Stoney Indian word meaning turbulent river. If you want to walk the skywalk, it can only be accessed by bus from back at the Icefields Center behind us. There's no public parking at the site itself.
So they can make money, say.
Yeah, just to come and do this is $35.
Yeah. And you have to be on the bus to do that.
Yep.
You can't just pull your car in and go do it.
Nope.
Ooh.
I didn't expect that. There's so much sliding on this river.
It's like being in the X.
Hey, ça qu'est-ce que tu voulais? Juste
Got another picture now, look.
Yeah, sure.
She wants to be dependent.
You'll want to pull in for another quick photo stop just ahead. These are the
These are the
tangled
serviette now. Do you want a
falls
big
that
serviette?
bounce and wind over a number of steps of limestone. The more water flowing over the falls, the better. If you know how to set your camera for a long exposure, Tangle Falls makes for a nice photo. Please do be careful
Whoa.
crossing the road, as
Oh my
it's common for
gosh.
drivers to be distracted by the scenery here.
Well, obviously I didn't take a picture. The camera didn't get that, so.
Do you want to go back? Is that what you're saying?
It was beautiful.
Let's give us an excuse to come back.
Slow down, Rodney. Slow down. This is a funny one.
Mom,
Just let me drive, please, Mom.
Yeah, okay, hon.
We're coming up to a viewpoint for the Stutfield Glacier, named after Hugh Stutfield, an early explorer in the
You
area.
think Munchie wants more?
We should definitely turn in and take a closer look.
No. Okay.
This is another
Across
glacier
or no?
that flows from the Columbia Icefield. From the icefield, the glacier drops over 900 meters, or 3,000 feet in a series of ice falls. When ice falls this steeply, it can't flow smoothly, so it cracks and breaks, giving it this unique rugged appearance. These are known as head walls and are extremely dangerous for ice climbers.
How about you? You want this half piece?
No,
No?
I'm
Okay.
having Mom's half.
Oh,
What?
my ears.
Yeah. Huh?
My ears are popping.
Put a little piece of pizza on the bottom of the water bottle. That's all
If you take a look at the Canadian quarter, on one side there's an image of a lady, which of course is the Queen, and on the other side is an animal with impressive antlers. This is the woodland caribou, and along this stretch of our drive, we'll see signs asking us to slow down, as woodland caribou may be in the area. These caribou do look a little like the more common elk, but if you do get to see one, they're most certainly a different animal. They look like their caribou cousins who live up north, but live a very different life here in the mountains. First and foremost, what's important is that woodland caribou numbers are dropping. In the past, these animals once roamed from British Columbia all the way to Newfoundland on the east coast. Today, there are 2 small herds in the area between here and Jasper. The South Jasper population is small and roam in the mountains around us here, including areas like Moline, Tonquin, Jonas Creek, and Pobocton Pass. Woodland caribou, unlike any other members of the deer family, eat mostly lichens, which is a sort of combination of fungus and bacteria. Lichen is slow growing and found mostly in old-growth forests and alpine areas. This means there's not a lot of it. Plus, it's not very rich in protein. Why do they eat it if it's so hard to find and not that nutritious? Lichen isn't attractive to other members of the deer family, so their choice of diet allows caribou to forage in areas that don't attract other large animals and their predators. Pretty clever, if you ask me. Caribou in Alberta and British Columbia are designated as a species at risk. Even in protected areas like national parks, the future of this symbol of Canadian wilderness is uncertain. So what can we do as sightseers to help? Most importantly, please follow the posted speed limits, especially through this area where the southern herd is known to travel. Even if there's no sign of the animals, they could be just over a crest or on a bend in the road. In the winter and spring, the caribou can be drawn to the highway to eat salt and mineral deposits, so it's even more important to stay alert in those seasons. As a hiker or backcountry enthusiast, staying away from caribou habitat and respecting wildlife closures is critical for these animals. Simple things like this, according to Parks Canada, can make a difference in the survival of woodland caribou. Hopefully, with your help, we'll be able to enjoy these animals in the future, not just see them on a coin. On our drive today, we talk a lot about male explorers in the Rockies. True,
Jesus,
most were men,
close,
but a
man.
few hardy women also ventured into the uncharted territory of the Canadian Rockies, and we should give special acknowledgement to
Well,
them,
he's following closer
especially
than I would.
as they often did so in less than convenient attire. Mary Schaefer was one of these ladies. She had been described as the mountain's first tourist.
You gotta do more than that,
She
man.
was
Come
certainly
on.
not a
Lean
lazy
into it.
by the
They could have pulled
type.
over a bit.
In the summer of
That's the lane
1908,
that would
after
have done.
several trips to the Rockies,
Wouldn't it?
she decided she wanted to
Is
visit
it?
the source of both the North Saskatchewan River and the Athabasca River.
Because I saw him, he was
Her
parked
journey
when I
from
went
Lake
walking last
Louise
night.
lasted over a month.
Really?
Part of her quest was to
Film and
find a
cameras?
large lake,
Really?
rumored to be
Cameras?
near where we are now. With her friend
Holy
Wally
shit, eh?
Adams and 4 others, she set off to find this mysterious lake. Venturing into the uncharted mountains was hardly typical behavior for proper Victorian ladies in their 40s. These women didn't care, and they did find that lake that no Europeans had seen before.
The rain is like ice.
I found it. Yeah. You thought you lost it, eh?
Uh-huh.
Good thing mommy was paying attention. Because I was very able to find that one. It's fine with the future crossing with the bottle, not the future business.
Yeah, whatever.
She puts it in there, pulls it out, puts it in there, pulls it out, right?
As long as we can keep her busy for another hour or so.
Would you say something?
I just said as long as she's kept busy for like another hour or so, we'll be there quickly now. And I didn't mean like you have to keep her busy, but like
No, I know, Roger.
yeah,
I know.
okay. I just realized how it sounded
No,
afterwards.
no, no, no.
distinct change now as we move into Jasper National Park from Banff. You'll notice that the valley is much wider, which geologists hypothesize is a result of slower glacier retreat. The geology is pretty much the same though. You'll see those distinct layers of sedimentary rock and the typical shape of mountains that we experienced all along the route. Because the valley is at a lower elevation, it supports much more wildlife than much of Banff National Park. So as we approach Jasper and driving around Jasper generally, be watchful for wildlife along roadsides and in grassy or low brush clearings. It tends to be easier to spot wildlife around Jasper than around Banff. But as always, still need a little bit of luck.
Another one?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Yeah, it's a different one. That one after Jasper, she's on that one.
This Smart Cruise is really nice. The Smart Cruise is really nice.
The guide, the fellow you mean?
Well, no, I'm talking about the Smart Cruise.
What's that mean?
So I set it for 100, and if it can go 100, it goes 100. If not, it slows down and matches the speed of the car in front of it.
Oh, that's good, yeah. And your feet are getting to relax.
Yeah.
I don't have that feature, do I?
I don't believe you do.
But if it says smart on it, or does it say that on there? Oh yeah, drive style, okay.
It's hard to chew off of you.
See, now if we're racked up like this, it's really difficult for any one of us to pass. If the front person won't pass, we need to like start taking turns passing.
Well, if we're all going 90, it should be okay.
But we're not, we're all going 80.
Where's that lid?
Get over that bend and maybe the road could be another big bend road.
One of the most prolific climbers in Jasper National Park's history arrived here in 1927 at the tender age of 19. Alfred James Ostheimer III came to Jasper on the pretense of collecting geological samples for a Harvard University course, but his real motivation was scaling the mountains. Although he did collect rocks, he also managed to climb 36 summits in 63 days, 28 of them being first ascents, 34 being over 10,000 feet in elevation. I gotta say, that's pretty impressive, especially for his young age. But not exactly what the university had intended. Alfred climbed in the Columbia Icefield area, and also extensively between here and Jasper. One thing I should point out is that he climbed all these peaks before any road access was built here. That means the approach to every peak involved horses, wading through icy streams, hiking with heavy equipment, and just plain bashing through the woods and rocky slopes. This was no picnic. It was a full-on wilderness adventure. By this time, 30 years after the Columbia Icefields were first discovered by white people, the technology of climbing gear had advanced a little, but was still primitive compared to today. They were still using smooth-soled boots with nails driven through the soles for traction on rocks and ice. They used heavy hemp ropes, not the high-tech nylon ropes of today that can lift a car off the ground. And finally, their clothes were made of cotton and wool. not Gore-Tex and synthetic fibers. Everything was heavy. If it got wet, it was almost useless. The horse guide was Curly Phillips, who had outfitted almost every mountain adventure based in Jasper between 1910 and 1930. Alfred hired Hans Führer as a climbing guide for him and his 3 friends. Führer had significant climbing experience, and though he was new to Jasper, his lack of local experience certainly didn't limit his assistance. This group was totally motivated, so they never established a true base camp. They just kept moving. Alfred climbed while his friends collected research data, assessed routes for him, climbed a little, or set up camp on the next journey. He seemed to have a boundless energy sometimes, climbing multiple summits in one day. Alfred was even tough enough to endure sleeping overnight in the chilly high alpine, just so he was closer to bagging more peaks the next day. In a single 36-hour marathon, he climbed 4 major peaks near here, including the North Twin, Mount Stutfield, Mount Kitchener, then finally Snow Dome. They eventually retreated down the Athabasca Glacier to take a break. He was, without a doubt, the region's most fanatical climber of his day. The late 1800s to the 1920s was truly a phenomenal golden era for the climbing world. The improved equipment increased the ability to climb more difficult terrain, which entices the personalities like Alfred to take on the challenge. Summits around the world felt boots on their craggy tops for the first time, but Alfred probably held some kind of peak bagging record, at least in 1927. Ostheimer didn't climb seriously again after what's known as his incredible summer here in the Canadian Rockies. He visited the Rockies again in 1977, 50 years after his most memorable year of climbing. His legacy is still legendary today.
Merci beaucoup. They're not red, but they look fluffy. You know, like her.
Pogobatan Creek.
Tu lis un livre? Tu lis l'autre livre, on lit l'autre livre. On peut lire un autre livre. Yeah, it looks like she has sinuses running. She looks like. Lire un livre. Wow. Oh. Oui, miaou. Miaou. C'est un chat, ça? Qu'est-ce qu'on a là? Yeah. Excuse me. She's like looked up and swam a little bit. It's like, no, God.
That dad making silly noises. What the hell is he doing?
Sure is.
As we've driven along, you might have caught glimpses of the old road from time to time. The original idea of the Icefields Parkway was that it would be a road strictly for touring, just like we're doing now.
Go for it.
No trucks or
Go
heavy
for it,
traffic
man.
were allowed on this road. It was a man named J.B. Harkin who first conceived the idea of the Icefields Parkway. He was the first commissioner of the National Park Service. For 24 years, he presided over the first major expansion of the parks and the idea of the parks being natural preserves. His rationale was that the more that Canadians saw the wonders of the parks, then more support would build for even more land to be set aside as parks. To accomplish that, he commissioned the Icefields Parkway to be constructed. It would
No
replace the
idea.
trail that connected Jasper to
None
Lake Louise prior
whatsoever.
to the road. For travelers, before the Icefields Parkway existed, if they wanted
Now
to
he's
visit
speeding
both
up.
Banff and
I think
Lake
he's being
Louise,
funny.
and then continue on to Jasper, they had to catch the train to Calgary, and then to Edmonton, and then to Jasper. It took
Yeah.
8 years to complete the road, and it opens to motorists in 1940.
But he was coming over. What the fuck
So
is he doing?
it's thanks
He
to
did,
Mr.
he went like
Harkin
that.
that we get to take this journey today.
I'm telling you, there's some bloody wise guys on the roads, Rod. You can't just chance it. You don't know what they're going to do. You know what you're going to do.
Through this beautiful place would actually help
He
its
sped up, but then he
preservation,
drove by you
and
again.
also
You know,
other
that's the
places of
second
natural
time.
beauty.
You were behind him twice now.
That's an interesting peak.
Wow, eh?
Wait, Munchkin. I know you want the phone, but no, we never let you have the phone. Parce qu'est-ce qu'on l'a dans le livre? On dirait l'histoire de maman, l'histoire de maman. Raconte-moi une histoire.
Is it 90 or 70 here, Rod?
90.
Raconte-moi une histoire, chouette. Dis-moi un livre. Ok, on va lire un livre? Ok.
That's my one, isn't it? This is my one, Roddy.
I think so. I don't have one, so probably.
Hey?
I don't have one, so if there's one there, it's yours.
Something might have. It's hard to see. She has teary eyes, Ronnie. Weird. Yeah. Whoa. I know it's.
He's the red one going to come up with Chupa on the back.
That's fine.
It's que la cloche belle.
If they want to go faster, I don't mind.
Yeah.
La cloche. La plage. La plage. Ça, c'est des baies. Des baies. Toi, t'aimes ça, les fraises, t'aimes ça, les framboises. Yeah.
The row of mountain peaks that we're following is called the Endless Chain Ridge. The ridge appears
Oh, wow.
almost as straight as a knife and is remarkably uniform in appearance. From end to end, the range is about 25 kilometers or 17 miles in length. The tallest of the peaks along the ridge sits a little over 9,000 feet. Perhaps it comes as a bit of a surprise that this range actually sits in something of a rain or snow shadow. Now that doesn't mean it won't receive rain and snow. However, most precipitation fronts will come from the west. As the fronts pass over larger mountains on the western side, they're forced to dump most of their snow or rain on those mountain ranges first, before they reach the endless chain. So when they reach the chain, they have no more moisture left to squeeze out. And that's what we call a rain or snow shadow. It's one of those microclimate anomalies. The Endless Chain was named by Mary Schaefer, who made her famous journeys of discovery in the first part of the 20th century, exploring the Moline Lake on a log raft they had made by hand. If we were to climb over the Endless Chain and down the other side, we find ourselves at the southern end of Moline Lake.
L'escargot, c'est bon avec du beurre et du garlic.
Is that what it says?
No.
Oh.
What's that?
She's just talking to Abby. And I was like, what? Is that really what it says? She told Abby, she said, snails. Snails taste delicious with garlic and butter. And I was like, is that really what it
There's
says?
a great little picnic area here called Bubbling Springs. You'll find the freshwater spring bubbling up from the ground near the picnic site. It's not a...
The route guidance will start now. At least one toll road is included in the current route. Continue on current road for more than 50 kilometers.
What has been upstream? Especially where there's human activity, I don't recommend drinking water from streams or ponds. What we call beaver fever is often present in even the clearest waters. So before you drink anything from around here, you should treat or filter it first, so you can remove any unwanted animal impurities that might have been added into the flow further upstream. If you drank something on the Athabasca Glacier, just me telling you this might be starting to make you feel a little ill. Don't worry, you'll be fine. As you saw, you won't find much or really any wildlife up on the glacier, so it's quite clean and free of contamination.
Les yeux, ça. Les yeux. Ça, c'est pour l'exercice. C'est pour l'exercice. Yeah. C'est quoi ça ici? Éléphant. Éléphant. Les yeux. Ah. Qu'est-ce qu'on a ici? C'est quoi ça? Poil.
No wonder. Shit. I couldn't figure out why the battery was going down so much because I forgot to turn it off battery only mode when we left.
No way.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's no big deal.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
But it actually was getting really good mileage anyways.
C'est quoi ça? Regarde la baie. Nous avons les fourmis, un coccinelle, une libellule, un escargot, une mouche, une sauterelle. Qu'est-ce que la grenouille dit?
Right.
Qu'est-ce que la grenouille dit? Ribbit.
Oh, look at these mountains though.
Ribbit.
We're coming up to Sanwapta Falls Resort and the trail to the Sanwapta
Nous
Falls.
avons les pieds en haut.
There's an easy sign, so we can't miss the turn. The falls are definitely worth a quick visit. To see the falls, take the turn and drive a half kilometer further down to enter the car park. The viewpoint for the falls is just a couple of minutes walk from the parking lot. The walk is super easy and just about everyone can do it. If you want to walk a little further, you can continue on the trail downstream.
Do we
to
want to
the
go?
lower falls.
We can stop at this
It's not
waterfall
difficult,
and
but
for a
the trail
stretch.
can be uneven and it slopes
Okay.
at
Water's
times.
gonna be warmer.
And I really enjoy
Looks warmer.
getting down
Yeah.
to the peaceful pool at the bottom.
It's the shades.
This is approximately an additional 3-kilometer round trip, so nothing major, but expect to take an hour or so if walking all the way. The resort at Sanwapta on the corner offers accommodations, refreshments, and a gift store. So it's a good place to stop if we feel we need a snack or a drink. If we haven't seen it already, the sign should be coming up shortly.
Piano. Ça, c'est une fête. Une fête. Une fête. Quel est ton Miaou. Chien.
Sorry.
Woof. 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 C'est quoi ça, ouais? Regarde la tortue. Nous avons un tracteur. Tracteur. Regarde nos jouets. Ah, ça, c'est tous nos jouets, ça.
Oh, look at that. It's an Unimog.
Cool. Le bateau miniature. Et les
It's not really a spot, but yeah, he's telling you, and man, there's a big dip there. He's saying.
Oh yeah, right there. No, it's an
Big dip.
entrance actually, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. That's good.
Oh, come on.
Ah, frig it out. Here then,
There it is, one, yeah.
get this one. There we go. There you go.
Oh, let me know if it's nice outside.
I think she needs a coat on though.
Well, we'll check it out right now.
I'll put her.
Yeah, probably needs her jacket or her sweater.
Yeah, just put a little.
Yeah.
A vest.
A vest would be okay.
Okay, just pull out all their. It's on the top right here. I got it.
Hey, sweetie.
On va s'étirer. I know, faut que je mette tes bottes premier. Oh.
We even got a sweater she can
Yeah, actually put a sweater. I feel safer just the drop right now. Yeah. Okay, well I have to put her shoes on. And I can't really put a sweater on her right now.
I guess so. How's that puchak?
Oh no, it's interesting. She was pushing a couple times and I went to smell
But
on
there's
it.
no more puchaks in here, right?
I did, I filled it up.
Oh, nice. Look
Wipes,
at that. Mom's
wipes,
on point.
I don't know about the wipes though, but. Okay, but am I going to pass her to you?
No, just bring her out and I'll come around to your side.
Okay.
Like, I mean...
Drive safely. Recording started.
Keep drinking water. Awesome. That was a nice little walk. Good job. Prends de l'eau. C'est ça.
Is this a lodge or something? Or?
Restaurant and stuff.
Oof, I stink. Like my ear pits. Armpits, ear pits. Does that even exist on the body? Ear pits, Rod? I don't think so. It's okay. Oh, shit. That water bottle is just damn. That toilet really
We've gone over the time zone, hon. It won't be 2 hours because Jasper.
Well, there's no way we're making 174 kilometers in an hour.
Jasper is 63 kilometers.
Yeah, and we're about 40 minutes past Jasper.
Okay.
A small
63
right-hand turn up
kilometers, you
ahead
can
will
make that
take you to a
40
picnic
minutes.
area that's
Pardon?
close to the shores
40
of Buck Lake. This is not a lake that's a must-do on our drive today, but if we're doing a thorough exploration of the Icefields Parkway, then you might enjoy to make this stop. Buck Lake is interesting because it was created by a large ice boulder that broke off a retreating glacier. It's unique because the weight of the ice chunk is so heavy that it sinks into the ground underneath it, which is made up by a layer of glacial debris, mainly crushed rock. The sheer weight creates something like a bowl shape, and the water collects into it, forming a lake.
That's what nice people
These types
do.
of lakes are called
They move
kettle
over a
or
bit.
sink lakes.
Is the AC back on, Rod?
Yeah, you want to turn it up?
Oh no, it just will take time to warm up. Don't turn it up. I just wanted to see if it was on. If it was on. Yeah, I just felt it with my hand. It's back here, but
Ahead on the right is Honeymoon Lake and Campsite. Once again, this is not necessarily a place we must stop. But if you're interested, there is quite a beautiful view down the lake looking down the range of the Endless Chain. This camping area has 35 unserviced campsites. It is open from May to October. I can't really tell if we're camping or staying at hotels. Camping in the national parks, and especially in smaller campgrounds like this one, is hugely popular and normally a great experience. One of the things I like best about camping here in the Rockies is that almost always your campsite is surrounded by trees, so you feel at least some sense of privacy from other campers. If you've been on a camping tour for this trip, one of the things that you will have noticed is that at busy times it can be difficult to get into campgrounds before they're full. Let me give you a little tip. One of the better tactics is to get to a new campground just 30 minutes to an hour after checkout time. That gives you the best chance to snag a premium site if someone is vacated on the
I
same
thought you
day.
say no
But
stopping.
of course, that might not be possible if you're traveling a significant distance.
I mean, if there was an
in a day.
emergency,
And
you'd
of
have to
course,
stop.
you want to do your sightseeing as you go. If you've never camped before, you think it might be a little bit on the rough side for you. Parks Canada have embraced the permanent tent sites, or glamping phenomenon, so you can try staying in very comfortable tents. And not having to buy and haul your own gear around? Not bad. It's a very gentle introduction to camping. Another thing you may not be aware of if you're not camping in the national parks is the need to store food properly on campsites. This is, of course, because of bears. Leaving food around attracts bears. And sure, you want to see a bear, but not necessarily in your campsite. Ultimately, not good for the bears either, as they'll be labeled as problem bears. Special lockers are provided, or you can always lock food away in your vehicle. I've actually heard many stories about bears peeling the siding off some older RVs to get to food. Proper food storage is not just a recommendation, it's a rule to be taken seriously.
I heard people tying their food up in a cooler in the tree. I mean, the bears climb trees, can't they? But they can't smell it in the cooler, can they?
I don't know.
Time for another one? She looks really stuffed up. I think the pressure, Ronnie.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me.
There are three mountains that dominate the view to the west through this section. There's a pullout coming up at the bend that's a good place to see these mountains and take a photo. The three mountains are Christie, Friat, and Brussels. The most dominating of these three is Mount Christie. It kind of looks like a sloping plateau with another peak stuck on the top near the middle. This was another mountain named by our familiar friend, James Hector. This time he named the mountain after a chief of the Hudson's Bay operation located at Fort Edmonton. Hector was very fond of naming each of these newly found landmarks after his friends and acquaintances. I'll bet if I was around in those days, there'd be a Mount Gypsy out here somewhere. Hector's one exception to naming mountains after people was the Kicking Horse River in Yoho National Park.
I'll ask you if you want some food. Do you shake? What? No? Okay, sweet. Merci.
Oh, they're dead. That's how the tree's turning orange.
Jeez, they look amazing.
Yeah,
Those
they're
mountains.
dying. Those are dying.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, I get you don't want something dry. I will give you an orange then. Stel mij nou aus. Oh, ça c'est orange. She's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, did you clean this top really good for it?
Yes.
What
No.
was in there anyways?
Egg and cheese.
It doesn't smell rotten or anything, but did you clean it with like hand soap?
No, I didn't use soap.
Just use hot water?
Yeah.
Yes. Give it a quick wipe. As much as I like that orange. I'm sure she's gonna like orange. It's empty. I'm cleaning it out a little bit, Munchkin. You hated that.
Even though you put hand sanitizer on, your hands don't feel clean after you've been in that dirty
absolutely
toilets.
not. I feel the same way. I feel gross. I'm like avoiding to touch Abby's food.
Go if you're gonna go. Go, man.
Double bar, Ronnie, okay?
Oh.
Just waiting. That's all.
The next roadside highlight as we drive through here is called the
there's
Goat
salt
Leg.
everywhere.
Mountain goats are most comfortable in the safety of the cliffs above. That's the self-preservation trait that they've developed, which is an ability to safely hold on to steep rocks with special cloven hooves so they can comfortably exist in places where predators cannot go. But from time to time, they walk down to this spot where you'll find them licking the ground. The dirt they're eating is glacial debris that's rich in minerals, which animals need to survive. The goat's high alpine diet doesn't have enough of these essential minerals, so they make the journey down to this valley bottom to get them. Having to make this trip makes them briefly vulnerable to attack. Natural mineral licks like this exist throughout the mountains, but the location of this one could give us some close-up views of wildlife. That is, if the goats are around today. If they are, please don't approach them too closely. And despite what locals may try to tell you, the goat lick is not a place where we can try to lick the goats.
Goats and glaciers.
Goats climbing up the trees and the cliff and everything. In Morocco, the goats were in the trees. We were in Morocco.
Through some groves of trees that are known as trembling aspens or quaking aspens. They were given this name due to the fact that their leaves quiver or tremble at the slightest breeze. Some native peoples call trembling aspen noisy leaf. I've even heard that some male natives refer to the tree as the squaw's tongue. I guess old sexist jokes about women talking too much.
Orange peel you could probably throw out.
These trees are
just asking if it's okay to throw the orange peel out the window.
Aspen can sprout clone saplings from the roots.
Just do it. Just do it.
No, that's fine. That's natural.
Yeah, it is.
So many of the trees that we're looking at can all be part and are quick growing, but normally have short lives, often not surviving more than 50 years.
Just dissolve.
The aspen also provide food for the beaver, moose, elk, deer, and nesting in rotten trunks for birds. The bark of the trembling aspen is white and has black scars on it from old branches. Sometimes there will be other black scars from where animals have scratched, which bears will do to mark territory and to show other bears in the area just how big they are. Or for elk, when their fast-growing antlers get itchy, they'll rub them against the aspen's trunk. Rotten wood was once used by First Nations mothers to line babies' cradles because it was soft, and the bark and roots were chewed and applied to wounds to stop bleeding. There's no end to the number of good things the trembling aspens can be used for. Let's take the next turn and visit the Athabasca Falls. The falls are one of the not-to-be-missed highlights on the Icefields Parkway, so let's stop in and take a few pictures. This is where the Athabasca River pours into a narrow canyon cut into a very hard, quartz-rich rock. A thundering spectacle is created. Hopefully there's a lot of water coming down the river from rain or snowmelt high in the mountains. There's a bridge and platforms here for better vantage points. You'll want to take many pictures from different angles, but especially try to capture the falls with a beautiful mountainscape as the backdrop. Turn in at the sign if we haven't already, and come back to the parkway when you've finished your visit.
stop in Jasper for supper then. So that'll be 20 minutes.
Huh?
That might be 20 minutes.
At least it's not 2 hours, right? Is that how long it was going to be? To get to the apartment hotel?
Yeah.
We're coming up now to a pretty little lake called Horseshoe Lake, which is, of course, named for its shape. Of the number of lakes along this stretch, I like this one the best because it's so easy to access. It only takes a very short walk from the car park to get to the lake, and the water tends to be a lovely deep blue color. And its water also seems crystal clear, making it possible to see some of the rocks under the water. Because of its shape and being well protected, it's almost always calm and peaceful. This spot also gives us a great view of Mount Kirkesland.
That's being
Another
nice
mountain
when they
view
pull to
named
the
by
side a
James
little bit
Hector.
and let you go
It's the
by.
gigantic mountain dominating the view to the south.
Instead of coming
Strangely,
this way.
Hector left no account of who or what this mountain name refers to, unlike all the other peaks he named after his friends and colleagues. The mountain saw its first ascent in 1927, led by the amateur Swiss guide Jean Weber. Weber would go on later that summer to help lead the climbing marathon started by Alfred J. Ostheimer III.
I agree.
Huh?
I agree.
Back there. I can't reach in the back anyways. She's putting on the box. She's like going in her mouth. Putting box.
Jeez. Look at this view though.
What about the cheese that's in there?
Cheese will be fine.
She can definitely eat that.
Oh, cut some, you want? Cut some off, or what do you want to do?
Oh, I guess I see if I can reach in the back. Okay, much again.
That's enough of that crying there. That's really annoying.
Okay, but don't say that, okay?
One kind of wildlife that you are most likely to see around the town of Jasper is the majestic elk, or wapiti as it's also known. Wapiti is a native word meaning white rump. Yes, it refers to the pale patch of fur on the backside of these animals. Male elk sport huge antlers when they're fully mature. They grow a new pair every year starting in the early spring. Through most of the summer, they're covered with a soft velvet, a sort of skin full of blood vessels that feeds the antlers as they grow. In the late summer, bull elk rub the velvet off their antlers by raking them through shrubs and on tree trunks. They leave behind shreds of velvet and a pheromone scent which gets the females in the mood, if you know what I mean. The velvet has been used in Chinese medicine for centuries. Some modern alternative medicines also feature elk velvet. It's supposed to help with arthritis, increase energy and blood flow, help build immune response, and generally make you feel more energetic. After the velvet is all rubbed off, the antlers become hard as bone. And those racks are the main weapons in battles between the bull males vying for the right to mate with the females. Mating season for the elk is spectacular. Through September and October, the males gather the females into herds or harems, and then compete for supremacy by wrestling head-to-head with their antlers. The autumn air reverberates in the Rockies with the male elk's bugle. After the rut, the males seem to all become friends again and hang out together throughout the winter. Now do be careful driving around the Rockies. Keep an eye out for elk on the roadside. And it's very common for elk to find their way into built-up areas.
Nope.
Often they're attracted to the grass.
You think it'll be
lawns
enough
on
to keep her going?
And you should also remember that elk are still wild animals and can be unpredictable. Please do keep your distance, no matter how dopey they look.
What's wrong with
The
it?
females tend to be in a grumpy mood in the spring after they've given birth, and they are protective of their calves. Females won't gore you with their antlers, but if they can knock you over, they will stomp you like crazy, which you can imagine is not a nice feeling. Females weigh 500 pounds, so it's a little like being hit with a hammer. The males can be aggressive during the fall rut. I'm sure you don't need me to explain how badly those antlers can injure you, so please give the elk the respect they deserve by not venturing too close.
It tastes a bit hot though. It's weird eating it kind of not cold, but slightly warm, you know?
Yeah.
I tried my skin. Yeah, no, it's weird actually. Oh,
Whatever.
oh, cold side is good. I don't think it's open up very well. Oh, where's the fire? Yeah, that's okay, Mommy shouldn't be cursing like that.
There's an excellent place to visit that's just a short side trip from the Icefields Parkway, and I'll mention the turnoff up ahead. That place I'm talking about is Mount Edith Cavell. For most people, the Icefields Parkway takes up a long, full day on its own, so I don't recommend trying to include it as a part of today's ride. But you might like to visit if we have another few days in Jasper. After the turnoff from the Parkway, it takes about 20 minutes to drive there, and you'll want to spend at least an hour there visiting. The best thing about Mount Edith Cavell is that you can watch the glacier right from its toe, as the glacier ends in a small lake that's usually filled with many icebergs. On warm days, it's common to see and hear chunks of ice carving off the glacier in places high above the lake. There are also some excellent hikes from the base area. So, like I said, spend an hour just to sit and study the glacier, and it's fun. Spend a little longer to do some of the beautiful hikes. Just up ahead of us, you should be able to make out the ski runs cut out of the forest and the mountain across the valley. These are some of the runs of Marmot Basin, Jasper's own ski hill. Like all the Rockies resorts, Marmot Basin usually catches light dry powder snow, the kind you usually see on ski movies. Operating a ski hill inside the national park can be a delicate balance of meeting the goals of the national park and at the same time providing the kind of experience that skiers and snowboarders are looking for. You may have noticed that most of the ski areas inside the national parks have no accommodation or hotel development at their base areas. This is because parks do not consider that to be an appropriate use of national parkland. There is one exception to that. Sunshine Village outside of Banff does have an 84-room hotel at the top of the gondola line in the village area. That one was slipped in the 1960s, perhaps in a moment of weakness by parks. The debate about allowing this type of development continues
Must have
to
been a
this
fire.
day.
Yeah, a lot of the trees are black.
This?
Look.
Yeah, Mom, I'm driving, okay? Sorry. I saw it, and that
No,
is
it's okay.
interesting, yeah.
It's okay.
Another corner is round grounded in the Rocky Mountains, and another great view lies before us. This time, the mountain in front of us in the distance is called Pyramid Mountain. Sorry, no prizes for guessing why this one got its name. Jasper's town site lies below that mountain. One of the lakes at the base of Pyramid Mountain is Patricia Lake. On our Jasper tour, you'll learn about a top secret wartime initiative that took place at this lake. It's one of the strangest projects that you will ever hear about. Soon we'll see a sign and car park for the Valley of the Five Lakes. It's one of the more popular easy hikes close to Jasper. Once again, it's more something to do from Jasper rather than being a part of our Icefields Parkway day. The trail is a loop, and if you're a bird watcher, it's definitely a stop you should make. You may be able to spot a wide variety of birds here, including yellow warblers and water thrushes. You may even get surprised by the occasional ruffed grouse hiding along the side of the trail. Other animals also use this area besides the birds. Watch for elk, and if there are lots of berries, be sure to talk lots and shout once in a while to alert the bears. If they're in the area, this will frighten them away before you even know they're there. The 5 tiny lakes are real gems, and on a warm day, they're even nice for swimming, as far as mountain lakes go. Expect to take just a couple of hours to complete the loop hike. From here, looking straight ahead, we should be able to make out the Jasper tramway line making its way up the side of the mountain to the terminal perched high in the Alpine. This is most definitely the best way to enjoy a superb elevated view of the valleys and mountains that surround Jasper. The mountain the tram is on is known as Whistler's. The mountain gets its name from a furry little animal that lives high in the mountains near the tree line. We call it a hoary marmot, and sometimes they're referred to as whistling marmots. Their unmistakable high-pitched whistle can be heard throughout the Alpine. This bridge takes us across a fairly gentle part of the Athabasca River. It's popular to do a gentle float on the river, and not to worry, there's no whitewater to deal with on that trip. At some stage, be sure to put your hands and feet into a river or stream, just so you can feel how cold the water is around here. And finally, after we cross the bridge, you'll see a turn that goes off to the left. This is the way to both the Marmot Basin ski area and also to Mount Edith Cavell, which we spoke about earlier. If you do want to go, take the turn, and the signs are easy to follow.
Time for the animals now. They may be coming out, Rod.
It's hard to say if it's actually.
It's a parked car behind us, you know, like a.
I know. Do we need to go to Jasper or no?
For what, love?
Well, first of all, I think we do need some MILK, but she doesn't want to have any. She's eating an animal cracker, but she's playing with it right now.
Okay.
So I don't know if she's actually hungry or not. All I do know is she would want the MILK.
Okay.
MILK, we can get somewhere, can't we, when we're wherever we are?
Yes, but I mean right now. We're still probably...
Gosh, she hasn't really
The route guidance will start now. At least one toll road is included in the current route. Continue on current road for about 6 kilometers.
She just does not want it, except for these. And she's not even eating them.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going.
Okay.
Okay.
Is the milk cold in the?
I wouldn't trust it.
It's 2 days old.
Yeah.
The cheese tastes warm. Like it's okay, but the milk I wouldn't trust.
Yeah. We should have put some milk in town, and I'm glad you got it.
Yeah. I know.
You know what? If there's a gas station right here, I'll...
Yeah, you can get milk.
You have something in your hands.
It looks like there's something right here, so...
We are now approaching the final run into Jasper's town site. With a population of about 4,500, Jasper is about half the size of Banff. But Jasper
Just a
also
chalet
sees visitor
place,
numbers in the
there's a shop
millions
with a
each year,
cafe,
and
so
is well equipped with services.
get milk.
I'll have directions as we approach the traffic lights,
Excuse
with
me?
choices
I
about
didn't know
going
you
into
had these in the
downtown
area.
or to the Fairmont Jasper Park Lodge. Jasper is a popular destination with RVers and campers, and we're passing by some of Jasper's large campgrounds. When full, which happens basically all through the summer, these campgrounds are the size of their own small towns. We'll also see the turnoff
Yeah, she
for the
doesn't
Jasper
want this.
Tramway if we plan to visit this
doesn't
most
want these
popular
crackers.
attraction. I do have a tour for Jasper National Park if you haven't downloaded it already. The best place to start the tour is by driving north on Connaught Drive, which is the road I'll use to take us into town. The tour will lead you along the route to all the best things to see and do inside Jasper National Park. Expect to spend at least one full day to do everything on the Jasper tour. But if you have limited time, you'll be able to bail out of the
No
tour
shop.
and return to Jasper's town at any time. I sure hope you enjoyed my tour of the Icefields Parkway
No.
today. It truly is one of the
They wouldn't sell you a pint of milk.
I didn't even ask.
If you did enjoy my tour, please
It's
take
a
a
restaurant,
moment
they
to
would have
post a
sold a
review
milk, but
so other travelers can learn about my services.
no.
If we
I
don't
don't
tour
know,
together
okay.
again on this trip, well, I wish you safe onward travels. And maybe we can do it again some other time in one of my many other destinations.
Okay, where's her DOTC in the thing?
Yeah. She saw